We're live, pal.
Wow, we are. Holy crap.
So, how is everyone doing today?
If you guys were wondering, in the background of the raw portion of the thumbnail, that is indeed a dumpster fire.
I thought we could leave people to figure that out on their own.
I wanted to inform very quickly. Let's not leave any confusion.
We have multiple pictures of the man, the myth, the legend, the sea of the Seaverse.
Rest in peace.
So this is the Epilogue podcast. We haven't got a set time. We're just going to talk until we don't want to talk anymore.
Pretty much. We're just going to talk until one of us on air wants to murder the other.
I mean, that's probably going to happen. I think we have two aims with this podcast. The first is to talk about the production of the last 2 years in game, and the last year or so in real life of the series. And the other aim is to, if you're downloading the save and you're playing it, to give you an idea of where we might have taken the save after Mania. Of course, we definitely encourage that if you're picking up the save, just to do whatever you want with it, whatever you're interested in doing. But if you are picking up the save and you're stuck for ideas, or you're interested in continuing it in the same vein, we thought we'd just tell you what. And we haven't thought that far ahead.
No, I didn't have really any big plans. I know, that's what I always do, though. During the series, my whole thing was, I have an idea of where I want to get. I just don't know how I'm going to get there at all. And then it kind of was just a week-to-week thing where I was like, this should happen. And then sometimes it was angle by angle, where like I literally got in a Skype call with Puddy, hit the record button, we got to an angle, and I decided that...
To change it?
Yeah, I just was like, that guy's going to die now.
Well, there was one thing that always, like... For me, I had a lot planned. But I never planned the minutiae. And so whenever I got in to start booking a show, I would always have this idea in my head that I want to continue an overarching story, and I would like to tell one story just on this show. And I never really got to do that, and it's one of the things I regret about the series, is that I never got to do those shows where it's like a plot point arise at the start of the show, and it is resolved over the course of 2 hours. And that continues to some extent other plot points, but it's mainly just about, hey, it's 2 hours, we can tell a story tonight. And I never got to do that a lot, because I would end up booking matches that needed to continue the story, and I would end up booking angles that needed to continue the story, and I'd have like 10 minutes left, and I can't tell like a story in that time, so it was, so I had similar issues, but there were some overarching things that I had planned, because for me, I always start there, like you were. Like, I need to get here, how do I do it? But for me, I found absolute joy in figuring out how I'm going to do it. And I love doing that. Like, for example, with the... getting to No Way Out. Getting the January build was really fucking tight this year for me. Or the February build. Was really fucking tight for me this year. And it's thinking, like, oh, I have to put in breadcrumbs this week. Otherwise, I'm just not going to have time to have breadcrumbs and give them space. So that was something that I had to have a lot of planning for.
Yeah, in terms of planning things, it was a lot, like I said, where I had big ideas, and some big ideas even changed on the fly. Like, a lot of what was shown in the series was not what I had originally envisioned. For a major example that's pretty recent, the Shane McMahon stuff, that was literally a joke I made when I got in a call with Puddy. I was just like, the contract read McMahon, but it didn't read Vince McMahon. It read Shane McMahon, and then I just put in an angle and I left it there. And I was like, yep, I'm doing that now.
And I think that's some of the best stuff that in the series is these little jokes that have gone like Apollo Crews' Road to Redemption was started as a little joke.
If it isn't the C-verse, it's the AC-verse, I think. At least Raw is.
Yeah.
SmackDown not so much, but at least with Raw.
I think also on my side, Make Wrestling Fun Again was a little joke.
Was, yeah, and it became the series, basically.
In a lot of ways, yeah. And it was only a I don't think Make Wrestling Fun Again is the Sammy character. but I think it's a portion of it, and I think it's a significant portion of it too. I don't think it's just some throwaway line. I think it's fundamental to his character.
Involving like jokes and stuff like that. Excuse me, that have kind of become more. That's a lot of my brand, I guess, because the Ric Flair being killed off, the kind of thing that started what I like to call my like creative freedom, which actually really started when actually the man who did kill Ric Flair lost the belt. I kind of look at that as, I don't know, it's an early look at what was going to happen in my mind, at least, because I literally killed somebody off, and I was like, I can do that again.
Yeah.
I can do that again. I can do that again, and I just kept doing it. The Titan Towers thing, like at least like 6 characters died. No way, Jose. Rest in peace, big dog. Yeah.
What? So there was a big tone change on Raw. So actually, no. Before we start about the big tone change on Raw, I want to talk about the first year, or the vengeance through Mania. We need to go back there. We need to talk about it.
You need to get into my head at that point. What I'm thinking.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first 2 months, because obviously I had a part to play in this as well. The first 2 months was, you had Owens, you had Orton, and you had Seth. And you had a bit of AJ, right? And you somehow got from AJ and Seth doing cruiserweight stuff at Vengeance, and Owens and Orton being the title guys, to getting rid of the cruiserweight title a month in. What went on there? How did Seth become that guy? Because obviously a lot happened after that. But in that first month, Seth wasn't planned to be the guy.
No, Puddy's setting me up to explain something I've wanted to explain for a very long time. Originally, the Seth Rollins position was supposed to be given to Tyler Breeze. Originally, the idea I had was Tyler Breeze wasn't even Pentagon. It wasn't any of the guys, I think. I think it was Tyler Breeze. I had a Hitman character, but I don't think it was Pentagon.
Wasn't that Galloway?
It was Havoc.
Oh, yeah.
I had Breeze, Havoc, and a big guy, and I don't think it was Galloway to start either.
Wasn't it like Sheamus? It was someone really weird.
No, it was somebody I was bringing in. I definitely think it was a British guy.
Was it Barrett?
No, he was big, like a big. Like I went from with the Galloway switch from this guy to Galloway. I went from big to just. Why? I mean, Galloway's big, but he's not. I don't want to say big again, but like Galloway is a very tall man. How about that? Yeah. And the original idea was a very big man, like Big Show type style. And it wasn't Big Show. I don't remember who it was. Are
you sure it wasn't Big Show?
Very well might have been. I don't remember at this point. It might have always been Galloway, actually. That actually starts to make sense in my head. A lot of the stuff, though, that I did in the beginning is very lost on me, because now I can look at it and I'm so confused with what was going through my head. It was... I don't know. The series has been really good for me in terms of how I think of things now. Like, I think of TEW so differently now than I did at the start, and I think of, like, series and stuff so differently now than I did at the start. But the change for Tyler Breeze was actually... Surprisingly, the change from Tyler Breeze to Seth Rollins was actually Puddy's idea.
Partially.
You were like, why are you giving it to Tyler? Why don't you give it to somebody else like Seth? And I'm like, well,
I don't remember it as clearly as well as I don't remember it the same way, is what I'll say. Because I think you eventually did what you wanted to do with Tyler. But
I did it in a lot more of a Tyler way, I think. A way that made more sense for the character. Especially, I guess, the established character. Because a lot of the characters and stuff that were developed throughout the series are very different from their real-world counterparts. Apollo Crews, for example, who doesn't really have a character in the real world aside from I smile. And I kind of worked to that, I guess, to where he kind of became a guy who smiled and was just kind of a happy dude. Versus the real world, where he's a guy who smiles, who is maybe a happy dude. You don't know because he never says anything, and when he does, it's just typically, I'm smiling.
The way I remember the first few months, for like my advice to you was that I was seeing that you were developing the cruiserweight title and the other title in a very weird way. Where
the idea of that,
yeah,
was to have a New Japan style where I could have the juniors on the level of the world title, and then I explained that to Puddy, and Puddy was like, "Why don't you just have one title?"
Yeah, because you were going through so much work to create a new division, and you were taking so much talent. At least you weren't like the problem with like the real world cruiserweight division is that guys who are that weight limit are still just fucking around in the main event. But you at least took someone like Seth and AJ who are actually big deals and put them in there. But the problem with that
I realized they needed to, but the thing is that then you take away from both sides
because your heavyweight title scene was so bare. Because it was Orton, who is terrible, and it was Owens, who you weren't writing well then at all.
I couldn't write for Owens at the start. I don't think I could write for anybody. At the start, I don't think I was even writing, to be honest. At the start, I was just playing TEW, and that's something now that I can look back at all my series, my TNA series, my my 04 series. I can look at those and I can look at it and be like, I'm just playing TW. And I've realized now that when you do a series on YouTube, I think it's very important that you don't look. You could maybe do it with like a Seavers type thing where it's like the actual base game. But I very do believe that now when you're showing something, when you're recording for something, I think the thing that's important is the story. And that I see now TW for YouTube as not a game that I play on YouTube. I think of it as it is a tool that I have that tells stories that I want to tell, and I'm looking forward to doing that with my next project. But yeah, this series has changed my thoughts so much on basically what I do, what I need to do in order to be successful, in my opinion, what I think of as acceptable for myself.
So I'm interested as to you did the SummerSlam.
Oh Jesus! Yeah, the SummerSlam.
The SummerSlam story, I suppose. The SummerSlam angle, the SummerSlam night.
SummerSlam dumpster fire.
You did the whole SummerSlam thing, and you had sexually maneuvered your way to not having a cruiserweight title and having Seth be the main title guy, and. Obviously, you had a choice from there. I'm not sure you thought you had a choice because you weren't so. This is one of I think your flaws you'd admit is that you're not very good at finding eloquent ways to maneuver yourself. If you know what I mean, like finding.
Not really.
Yeah, I think. Wait, you don't know what I mean?
Yeah, I have no clue what you mean.
Okay, so like having a champion that you don't want, getting the belt off of him. Finding ways to make that fit into a storyline, you'll just instead of getting the belt off of him in a natural way, you'll just keep it on him until you reach boiling point, and then have a scorched earth moment where it's really awkward and forced. If you know what I mean? Like think about the Seth title reign in general. But
the Seth title reign is some of the most painful shit ever because I don't think you can book a good Seth Rollins character because I don't think without. Making one, I think, because literally the Seth character that I tried to book, I think, was a lot similar to the real world one. But again, at the time, I think I couldn't book anything very well. I couldn't write for anyone, so I couldn't make it work. Even though in the real world it really doesn't work. So I basically had this guy who had blonde hair holding my belt, who didn't really have any personality aside from I am guy with belt. And then I also think that I think I did an alright job with once he dropped the belt, kind of being like, oh wait, I'm just a guy now. What am I supposed to do? And then he tried some different things and he failed. But
I'm interested following SummerSlam. Is it that you felt like you weren't capable of naturally removing that title from him, and thus felt you were forced to keep it on him, or did you legitimately want him to be in that position? Because I feel like it's a bit of both.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a bit of both. Now, of course, I look at it as a huge mistake on my part. Why didn't I just do it? But I think at the time I truly felt like nobody else could do it. Because at the time, and this was a discussion that we had about partway through the series when Raw began to kind of hit its stride, I think, it was, what do you want to do? Do you want to book for ratings and numbers, or do you want to book what you want to book? And I was like...
I think the Dolph Ziggler-Seth Rollins matches was kind of the apex of that.
Yeah, where I kind of sat there. Well, yeah, after when I booked that for like the second time,
yeah.
I sat there and I was kind of like, oh, geez, he's right, because I had kind of denied Puddy first when he was first like, you're booking for numbers. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm booking what I want to book, and he was like, well, I guess then what you want to book is numbers. And I'm like, well, no, that's not right. And then that happened, and he brought it up again, and I was like, yeah, I am not telling what I want to tell. And then that kind of, after Mania, kind of, when we first got Roman, was kind of the point where I first kind of went, okay, I am now free to do this, I guess. And I don't think Seth had even dropped the belt at that point. I think he was still champion, and I still kind of felt like I can go with this where I want to go. And then, of course, it kind of was fully released when I finally got the belt off of him. He kind of disappeared in the background. I could work with people who I actually kind of, I don't want to say liked, but people who I could write for, I think, in a way where it felt right to me.
It's interesting, because you can look back, I think, as someone who wasn't there, because it was just us two. I don't think a lot of people, I don't think anybody would have noticed this, but you can go back, I think, and see a very different side of that period of time if you realize, like, the kind of Booker Tucker is, and realize that, like, all of that was because, not all of it, but a lot of it was because he didn't quite know how he could justify himself removing it from Seth, and also something you said, and you've said this a couple times, is at the time, and maybe still, you thought that just having a long title reign, just having it be long, would be good. Like, it doesn't matter that any of the defenses were good.
I think that's something that I used to deflect the fact that I was, I don't want to say...
But I think you had this, like, internal belief that... I don't want to
say drowning, but, like, I was... I don't know. I forget what the word is, but I was struggling. Like I didn't know where to go. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I just have this belt on this guy, and it was kind of a thing I felt comfortable with. So I was like, we're just gonna keep doing that, and then because it was supposed to go even longer than it did.
Oh yeah. I had to literally the night that you took the belt off him, I had to talk you into doing it.
Yeah, and I was still like, oh, I don't know, and then I put it on. Who did I put it on?
Cesaro. Or
which
Owens.
It was Cesaro, which now makes
No, it was
sense.
Owens, and Cesaro won it off of Owens at SummerSlam.
Yes. I don't know. I would definitely say though that Rollins was supposed to go till SummerSlam. I think though. I don't even remember. Rollins was supposed to go for a long time. A stupidly long time.
But I bet when you had that thought, oh, he's going to go to SummerSlam, you probably didn't know who was going to take it off him at SummerSlam.
Nope, no idea, because I had nobody. I didn't think I had anybody who could take it off of him, and at the time,
Rollins' reign is the longest in the series out of anybody,
which is kind of
by a month. It's a month longer than AJ's, roughly, I think.
Which is kind of sad on my part, but
nah,
it was.
Like I said during the Mania episode, I think that there are some genuinely iconic moments of the series that happened in Seth's title reign, and I do think you didn't handle the Seth Galloway relationship that well, but I think I
could have done better with that, but
I think there's some gems in there.
Something I've kind of discovered is I'm really shit at booking 3-man teams, which is funny.
Which is funny because that's your entire brand.
That was my whole brand near the end, where I kind of got my feel for the Wyatts. As much as Puddy doesn't like them, I got the feel for.
That's not true. I like Luke Harper a lot,
and I found a way to kind of bring them together. And I kind of sucked with the Bullet Club, but that was my fault entirely because they kind of had all the pieces there.
See, I actually kind of liked your Bullet Club incarnation. I know it wasn't
I could have done more of them though, because the original one of the original ideas when I first got Roman and the Wyatts was to have Wyatt family versus Shield versus Bullet Club, or something like that. There was like another group as well.
You were going to do this really random like tons of
yeah,
teams matches.
And I didn't know how I was going to swing it, and I decided that like my brand would just be like 6-man stuff, and I was like, I get 6-man belts, and then the more and more I thought about it, and I just kept putting it off, and I'm like, I'm just not going to do it, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because in the end I made
Your Bullet Club iteration was unambitious, but I think they all were genuinely compelling characters, and I don't mean that as if like, oh shit, these are some real people that I identify with, but they were likable. There was some charisma that you had to those promos. Their matches were fine, and I genuinely felt like that group, it was one of the more coherent groups in the entire roster. Like, I never felt like there was any tension between those three.
The end, I kind of messed up because I stopped booking them and things, and they should have done something at Mania. I should have had something happen, but I didn't really know what to do because Finn was one of the guys I was thinking about for Money in the Bank, and the day came, and I was like, give it to Swan, because whatever, Swan's been killing it as of late.
I suppose we can talk about this now. I feel like you had a weird reaction to Finn in 2018, because I mentioned to you that you had kept him very strong on TV, that he had not taken a lot of clean losses on TV since he had debuted, and that he was in a position to be a pretty strong guy in terms of like in real life the crowd would have seen him pretty well, because generally he does well with the crowd, and you'd also kept him very strong. And I think, I don't know whether this is conscious or subconsciously, when you heard that, because you talked about it a couple times in this manner, when you heard that, you had like a negative reaction. You were like, oh, I don't want him to be strong. And you immediately kind of took it the other way. Instead of capitalizing on someone you'd accidentally made into an important player, you kind of just tried to do what WWE does and like, no, slap you down. Don't get over on your own.
That's interesting too, because that's something I always say is a really stupid thing to do, and I can definitely agree with it. But it was because he had gotten so over to where I never had any plans to do anything big with him, and Puddy pointed it out to me, and I was like, okay, I need to make it look like he's not as important.
Yeah.
That way people aren't like, where's Finn, when I don't have anything for him? Because I never had anything for the Finn Balor character. The most he was ever going to do was maybe win the U.S. title at some point, which quickly changed when the Neville Ricochet stuff went from climaxing at, because originally the Neville Ricochet stuff was supposed to climax at Survivor Series. It was supposed to be like a quick little thing, and then I decided, oh no, I'll do a tournament. And then I decided to do the Ricochet injury so I could get Neville doing some other things, like the Rob Van Dam match and the Swan match.
That was another thing. Actually, before I get into that, I want to ask one more question about Finn Balor. Did your D-push of him have anything to do with with his very pro-guns attitude in the current political climate?
I actually want to just touch on the character in general.
Sure, go ahead.
I think I've done something really interesting with the Finn Balor character, because I don't like the Finn Balor character at all.
Your version is so much better than real-life version, for sure.
I just tried to be entertaining with it, and I tried to make him as interesting as possible, because I think that's a downfall of Finn Balor, Prince Devitt, Fergal Devitt, whatever. I think he's a very boring guy, at least from what I've seen of him, which is mostly just his NXT work and his WWE work. I haven't seen enough of his Bullet Club stuff, which I'm sure is great, because he has to have gotten that reputation from somewhere, correct?
Well, Marty Scurll has a really good reputation.
That's true. But I tried to be as different as possible with Finn Balor, and I decided from the get-go I wasn't going to use the demon, and then...
Oh, I forgot about what we did at Survivor
Series. It became a thing that I brought out every once in a while, and I brought it out again at the Rumble. And
I remember we brainstormed
where was
stuff
it
about
going?
that.
Like right now, where was it going? No idea. I never had any plans for the demon to do anything. I might have had an idea at some point of like, oh man, Finn could like inner fight with the demons, and he could like eventually turn on the Young Bucks.
When it turns into Oli and Evil shows up, he's the demons.
And like he could start fighting with the demon, and then eventually like become the demon and embrace it, and that could be like his heel persona, while Finn Balor, and to kind of have like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type deal. Which is something I think...
maybe Two-Face. I feel like Finn Balor would play a good Two-Face.
Oh yeah, Two-Face character, that'd be really cool. The Jekyll and Hyde character was what I was originally going for. But like I said, originally I never had anything to go for. It was like, number one was I was never going to use it, and then we got to the Survivor Series thing, and I don't know if Puddy brought up the demon. Who brought up the demon?
I believe you initially brought up the demon.
I think I brought it up as like a cool thing that we could do, and Puddy was like, Yeah.
And
yeah,
then
we'll
I
do that.
thought of Sting, and I tried to like pitch it as kind of that type of moment.
Sting.
The Sting Survivor Series 2014 thing,
Yeah.
where the
And
lights
then-
just turn off and there's an unexpected surprise that shifts the tide of an emotional
Survivor
match.
Series. Survivor Series has always been, it's the sports entertainment show. It's the twist ending show. And that's why I really like Survivor Series in the real world, because it changes so much going into Mania. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's because like all of the big four pay-per-views in the real world have their own kind of thing. Mania's Mania, the Rumble has the Rumble, and SummerSlam is typically the best card of the year.
Usually,
Survivor
except
Series.
for last year. Ugh.
Yes, I know. Survivor Series has its twist ending, which is something that I like. I like in proper doses. I like the Vince Russo "what a twist" moment, where it's like, what? Like even then, I don't even know if you called a twist this year with the Brock.
I like to call it.
match.
I think it's a better way. A better way to phrase it is it's the bollocks over everything else card that
That's
usually
true.
has.
It's the sports entertainment show.
Because even if you look back at like some other cards, like 2011 had a really good match on it. It was Punk's big victory, and then immediately the main event was that tag team match with like Awesome Truth versus Rock and Cena.
At the end of the day, it's sports entertainment above all else.
Again,
yeah.
well, we disagree as to what that means. I think you're just saying, oh, it's wrestling. Okay, yes, that is indeed the show that we are watching.
I think of sports entertainment as like anything that's like bollocks. You know what I mean? Like run-ins and like crazy shit and like swerve moments. Yeah. That's what when I say sports entertainment, that's typically what I mean. Kind of gotten off track with the Finn Balor thing. I don't even remember where I was tying this back in.
Well, I know what I was going to move on to is that
the demon. If I can just
go ahead.
Up here. The demon character was never really meant to go anywhere, but that's something definitely that whoever took the save be really interesting if they were to do something with it. If they wanted to work it in, do their own thing, kind of do what I did, whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's up to them now. But if they were looking for what I would have done is I just wouldn't have done anything with it, and maybe had it just come out at random points again, because something that I tried to keep very vague, and something that kind of got messed up later on. But I'm gonna in kayfabe, it's still we don't know what the demon is. Is it Finn? We seem to think it's Finn because it's similar looking to Finn, but is it Finn? Because Finn doesn't seem to know of it or what it is. So who knows?
Yeah, so you were talking about Neville and Ricochet. And one of the interesting things that, it's been a while now, so you might not remember this, but one of the interesting things that we talked about at the start of the season, so like after Mania, was you have a bit of an issue sometimes with taking unproven characters like Neville and Ricochet and putting them in the main event. And you think that there are, and you had this with Tyler too, and you had this with a lot of other people, where you think that you have to go through certain steps. That they have to go through this step and that step and this step and that step, and then like for example with Neville and Ricochet, obviously you never got them to the main event and you never intended to in this series, but at one point you did intend them to get to the main event, and you thought that they had to have a US title like run first.
The Neville Ricochet stuff was originally my main event of WrestleMania when I first started like looking at things at the end of SummerSlam. Originally the Neville Ricochet stuff was supposed to main event with the world title, and the US belt would kind of be around Survivor Series, and we get the big like heel turn swerve deadly game style type deal in the final for the US championship at Survivor Series. And then they go on triple threat, lose it at the Royal Rumble, and then they keep fighting up until Mania, and that just kind of never happened. Mixture of things, mostly me just deciding I didn't want to do it. I wanted to go a different way. And part of that was knowing then that basically Puddy pitched the idea of Owens winning the Rumble, but I'm sure we'll touch on that more later. Yeah. But that definitely like made me go, okay, yeah, I want to do that instead. But yeah, that's just a little tidbit there.
Yeah, the part about that was though that often you'll do these things. I think you did a similar thing with Baron Corbin, where you'll have these like barriers, like he can't be in a main event storyline until he's done this, and then you'll spend like 9 months meandering to that story point. Another example is Rusev. You were really bad with pulling triggers on Rusev's
the Rusev thing was just totally botched on mine. It was it was really bad timing on everything for me, and that is one of the very, well, how about this? It is the one thing at the series where I can look at it and I think there are like no positives with how I did it.
Except that he ended up coming back to me.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the one positive of the whole thing. He ended up going back to Puddy, and
he had a weird run on SmackDown. I guess we'll talk about that later. I think it's there are some bad parts and there are some good parts to his second run on SmackDown. But yeah, no, and one of the things I tried to convince you to do around then was, if you want someone to be in a main event storyline and you have a compelling storyline for them, just do it. And just thrust them into it. It's like it's how I had to convince you at Vengeance, and that's why you didn't have guys ready for Seth, because you wouldn't just put someone in that position, capitalize on an idea. And if you looked at like my favorite storylines on my side with Tommaso or with Kevin, they arrive and they just get thrown into a main event storyline of some sort. And it's like, look, I don't need you to be built up because I want to do something with you that's interesting. And with you, it was often like, oh yeah, I can't take the belt off of Seth because these 5 guys need to have US title reigns, and I like to have year-long reigns, so it's going to take 5 years. And that was like a problem you were often having with your, like, you couldn't get main eventers because you had all these requirements for them first, and towards the end, like especially Mania, you just pulled the trigger on a very big jump.
Yeah, something that there was a point where I had agreed to it, and then I had changed my mind, and like, geez, I just keep spinning off into different things, but I think this works.
Do you want to tell people your other idea?
Yeah,
because it was a good one.
My original idea was that The Miz was going to win.
Well, your original idea was the Apollo one, I think. And then you had
the original idea was the Apollo one, and then I changed it in my head to the Miz one because I kind of wrote. I had done most of the Shane Owens stuff, and this was before Miz decided he'd retire. So I full on I knew when I decided he would retire that he wasn't going to win. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I just decided last minute, oh no, I'll do this thing, and I kind of screwed myself with the Miz thing. And for those wondering, he was going to go to SmackDown. So if you want to do that.
Well, you mean after the...
after he's retired now. Or
well,
retired from Raw.
After we talk about the history of the series, we are going to move into our what would we do, and I think the draft can start that. So
fair enough.
I think we've sorted out our 4 little back and forths roughly, or what we probably would have done.
Yeah. But anyways, what I was saying was so the Miz was originally supposed to be Shane's kind of champion, I guess.
The Del Rio style.
The Del Rio's, yes. My idea was that Owens would win, very Punk style, and then Shane would come out with Miz, Del Rio style, be like, cash in, and Miz would actually catch Owens by surprise and win the belt right then and there. And Maurice is back, I think, with the save like 2 weeks in. So it was almost going to be really great timing. And if she had been back, I very well may have done it instead. But it was like her not being there, it just didn't make sense. Because apparently it's a rule on Raw. It's in the Raw Constitution. If you are married to somebody and they are not in your corner, when you're just not going to do well. It's a joke. Hope I haven't. Oh, no. I can still see the level thing moving.
Oh, my microphone is muted.
I was about to say, I'm like, okay. I'm like, Puddy has just stopped talking.
Yeah. Do you want to... I know you probably talked about this on screen a little bit. We're gonna move on to SmackDown soon. I think we've covered everything mostly on Raw, without going into the minutiae. Do you want to talk about your issue with women in wrestling?
I don't have an issue with it. Like, Puddy has made me out to be this like guy with a huge issue with it. And I don't. Well,
this is just your platform to explain what your issues were over the last 2 years with the women thing, because you have run into issues.
I got a bad jump with the women's division, and I kind of just could never recover. Right? I didn't. I don't think I drafted very many decent women. Correct?
No, you didn't.
I didn't draft.
It was the Natalia division.
I had decided from the very beginning I was going to have a women's division, and then Puddy was like, just do a women's division. I'm like, I only have to tell you. And he's like, that's fine.
And I think
like,
you could
right,
have done that, too. You just never
I made
acted
it
on
just Natalia.
No, you could have done like a territory style. One girl comes in, beats her, and then on the pay-per-view she wins the title back. Like, you could have...
That's what I was building to, but here's the other problem. I didn't have anybody built up to where I could do that. And
there's that issue again. You should have just thrown someone in there and what's the name? What's the word? I used it for throw when he got dwarfed. No, it's not dwarfed. It's nerfed or something like that. But I can't remember what the word is. But it's a trope where the villain comes in and just beats the ace on the first day, and just like boom, I'm now important.
Do the Big Show strategy where it's just like boom, I'm important. I beat Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
giant strategy, whatever the hell you want to call it.
But I wasn't talking mainly about your women's division. I was talking about mainly after that, when you had, of course, to deal with a situation where your audience wanted to see a certain amount of female characters, and you were, I'm going to say, not prepared to give that to them.
Yeah, it became very hard for me to just put women in the show, and it wasn't by design, really. It was in a lot of the shows where all of a sudden on program I go, oh, I don't think I have enough women. That's literally because it's just not how I thought about it. I just booked my show how I would have booked a normal show.
And I constantly kept telling you to just create a strong female character and put them in feuds, and you never pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah, and that was partially because I don't think I knew how to, and I think Summer was on her way to being one, and then Tyler went to rehab.
And I think that was a great opportunity for Summer to become something.
Yeah, and I don't know why I didn't in retrospect. Probably because you pushed me to introduce the Cook brothers.
No, this was way after. This was I suggested that in like December, well after you had the opportunity to create strong female characters and failed. And part of it, and one thing I said to you was, look, you have a couple of joke ideas that would always have women on screen, and one of them was I think it was either Cherry Bomb or someone else. I think it was Cherry Bomb though.
It was Cherry Bomb or Eva Marie.
Yes, and I
we eventually just threw her in with the Apollo crew, and she's like, "Why am I here?" And that was like the one angle where she was like, "Why am I here?" That's literally me going, "Why is she here?"
So yeah,
I don't know. I was gonna say, oh man, I'm bad at booking women, which I'm not, because literally, you want to know how you book women effectively in professional wrestling? You book them just like the men.
Sure.
Like there's no difference at all. There shouldn't be a difference. And
sure, but I also think that in your promotion you could have, yes, in an ideal world they're just wrestlers, but you also had the opportunity in a promotion that didn't have women's wrestling to still have strong female characters that just weren't wrestlers, because you had a strong male character that wasn't a wrestler. He was Vince McMahon was a wrestler for 3 months of this series, but he was a strong character for all 2 years, and you could have done something similar with a female. You were capable of it. You just needed something you could sink your teeth into.
Yeah,
I would really recommend booking 2013 or 2010 SWF and getting to book Emma Chase and can't remember the other one.
Hannah.
No, it's not Hannah. No,
it's Hannah. Just like the like.
I think it's Anna Garcia.
Anna Garcia's on comms, I think.
Yeah, now after she stopped managing.
No, Emma's on comms.
Emma Stone, right?
Emma Chase.
There you go.
The other girl is Hannah. She's the opposing face manager, but
no, Hannah is not the rival of Emma Chase. Hannah is just some random girl who's a very recent addition to the promotion.
Oh, then it's not Hannah, then it's the other one. I always mix the two up then.
I'm gonna go take a look myself.
Puddy's gonna take a look for us, folks, because I can't for the life of me remember what the hell's going on.
For some reason, Emma Bitch is coming to my mind, but that's a completely different character.
That's a completely different character. You tried, buddy. You tried.
Shit, I can't find it. On Emma Chase's backstory, it's not saying who she was in.
I swear it's Hannah.
It's not Hannah.
No, it's not Hannah. You're right, though. You're right. It's not Hannah.
Hannah is a 29-year-old who just has done nothing.
Yeah, she's with Valiant to start with. She's not the face version. It's not Garcia, though. Garcia's always on comms.
Yeah, but the person who she was rivaling with was on comms.
Really?
Yeah. Is Anna Garcia dead in my game? Is that why I can't find her?
Very well might be. She's so old. I know. Well, she's like 50.
She's not that old.
Is she? No,
Lies.
I don't even know what's happening.
Lies and slander. I don't care that we're slowing the podcast down because people know what they're in for.
we are figuring this out, folks.
There she is, Anna Garcia. She is dead. That's a shame. She died at 39.
Oh, Jesus Christ, she was young.
It might be Anna Garcia.
It might be.
I mean, it doesn't say in her bio, but she was there in 2006. I don't remember. Anyway, you should book.
That seems right, I guess.
Book those gals. They're some of the most powerful characters in that universe, and they don't wrestle. All right. Unless we're obviously going to talk a bit more about Raw afterwards, because after we talk about SmackDown, I want to talk about the times where we worked together, because there were a few of those.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we're going to go into what we would do afterwards. But is there anything you want to talk about the production side of mainly Raw before we move on to talk about SmackDown?
One thing I quickly just want to touch on is the intros.
Oh, yeah.
Puddy tells me, you should make an intro, too. It wasn't even that hard. I'm like 4 hours later, I'm like, I have this. It's kind of okay.
Well, because I knew people would be asking for it.
And they did ask for it. And I was like, God damn it. And by the time Cesaro got injured, I was like, I'm not making another one. I'm like, I'm not updating mine.
Yeah, I definitely was very cautious with mine. Like, oh, Bailey might win. Alexa might win the title back. I won't change it yet. And then I figured out the idea that we'd go into season 3, and I was like, oh, I can make the intro for that. I like my intro. It turned out better than I was expecting it to. But yours, when I saw yours, first of all, it was good, and then we made a few changes to it, or you made a few changes to it. I shouldn't say we. I made some suggestions, and then it turned out the way it is.
Now, if I don't know, I don't want to jump anything you were going to say, but what I'm seeing on the screen right now, and you guys won't be able to see it, so Puddy will hopefully explain it.
No, I'm hoping to show them. So do you want me to try before we jump the gun?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, right.
Because
so
these things, I've never seen them before. I've heard of them.
I've only just I found this
told to make these, and I was like, well, you don't do these, and there they are, the mythic things that I thought weren't real. And
it's crazy. Okay, before we jump, I'm going to see if I can do this before I start talking about them. This is the moment where this podcast turns into zero editing to maybe having to edit. Literally, a click of the button. If this goes horribly wrong, I'm going to have to edit, and it's going to suck. Please work. Didn't quite work, but it didn't spoil anything, so I think I can fix this.
Good enough.
Let's get rid of Grand RPG. Slowly but surely, we're going to get rid of Grand R. Oh yes, this is gonna work, guys.
Whoop whoop.
No sub-region. Should be alright, yeah. And then edit scene. Can we fit position/size? Fit the screen. Oh, look at that! That is beautiful. Right, so I can start talking about this. This is the first piece of major planning I did for SmackDown, and it is insane because I haven't read this in a while. This document was made in July of 2016.
I can already see something that's different at the very end of the Cena one, as well as his new recruits, the Young Bucks. Yep. I'm like, that happened.
Do you remember that? Okay, so
you wanted the Bucks at one point,
and then because you took them, I was like, that's fine. You got to give me Carl and Doc.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, because I had nothing for Carl and Doc. They were like.
But one thing that astonishes me when I'm looking at these is I made this in July of 2016. This was not edited. This was made and just stopped. I never edited this. And some of these things are surprisingly exactly what happened.
Yeah,
and this is July 2016. Which is pretty crazy. But yes, I made these plans. And one of these things, I'm going to give you the biggest change from these, right? Is I was going to try and angle something, right? I'm gonna wait to scroll down because you're gonna be like, what the fuck is going on? I was going to try, and it's never worked because it wouldn't have fit in the world, but I was going to try to somehow get intergender to work. And Bailey was gonna be part of the baby faces. Probably ended up in War Games. But I couldn't swing it. I couldn't reasonably swing it. I gave up pretty early on that. But this was this was the main characters. The babyface team would have been Cena in disguise, Zayn, Joe, the big guy, Gargano, the Lancer, Sabre Jr., the smart guy. This is very different. Sabre was going to have a very different kind of story after he lost and stuff. And then we have AJ the Dragon, who was very interesting on this one.
A very big question I have for you was Cena always the big bad?
Since July of 2016,
It set it up there, I just realized. But I mean, because there was one point where did it ever change?
No.
Because at one point you hinted, to me, at some things that I didn't think were very Cena. But was it always him? Because I remember at one point in my head, I thought it was Bailey at one point.
No,
That's
it was
all
never Bailey.
I had that in my head at one point. I don't really remember why. If it was just like a funny thing that I thought, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my god, it's right."
The latest it was finally decided that it was going to be Cena. The latest that I had it in my head was SummerSlam 2016. It probably was earlier, but since then, it's absolutely the Cena idea has been in my head. It's developed, as you can see. It's not got the whole it hasn't got the bitter stuff about how he got injured and stuff like that. That came a little later, but the behind the scenes stuff with Cena being a bad guy, and not a bad guy, but well, yeah, kind of, but being behind everything behind everything was definitely a plan from very early. And was very much, as you can see here, part of my plans from the start. Shockingly so, more than I actually remembered. So, yeah, that was definitely a thing. Even though, and that's one of the things why I'm looking at these documents, thinking because I used to think, the first year of SmackDown wasn't amazing. Did I have my ideas in my head? And I'm looking at these documents like, yeah, and they laid some building blocks, stuff like the Sabre Jr. feuds with Joe, Show, and Tommy Enda. They're important parts of his character 2 years later. Same with Gargano, some of Sammy's stuff, even though Sammy's stuff mostly wasn't that effective. Like the Shinsuke feud was big at the time, didn't really last on him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And of course the AJ, all the Cena, everything Cena did before Rumble 2017, everything Cena did before Rumble 2018, except for the AJ feud, was pretty inconsequential. I'll admit that. He got involved in a lot of inter-branded stuff, which was cool, but there wasn't a big feud that he was really involved in. He tended to fuck off. Like when the Magnificent SmackDown 7 formed, he fought Brock and he fucked off. Yeah, he got injured in Cape. I mean, how injured was he? Was he just hiding? Mm-hmm.
Oh, they were the ones who injured him, correct?
Yes, Brock was. Yeah,
but it was the 7 in general, which is very, very cool now that I look back at it, because he was never hurt all along. It was all a lie.
And of course, Cena was the one who fired Chris and then brought him back, and it was that was all a ruse for sure when Cena fired Chris. Cena acting like the leader of the good guys against KD was all an act. That was definitely in my head from the start. And as you can see here also, in this version it was Zayn and Gargano were the two chosen ones for Cena, and I ended up changing it so that Zayn was kind of a leftover.
And that worked better, I think.
Oh yeah, much better.
Where Zayn was like this. So what was the original idea with Zayn being like Cena's hero, I guess?
It was always going to end up in conflict between the two, because it was always going to be that Zayn felt very betrayed with the idea.
Okay.
That was always
then if it's like that, I definitely feel like the version that we got is much stronger.
Well, one of the big storyline elements that I didn't show as much as I would have hoped was there was a development in Sammy's motivations all throughout 2018, from January to the end, where at the start when he hears everything, his ideals are broken, and because he's motivated by ideals, he ends up very upset. And then that final promo, he makes a very big statement: "I'm not fighting for SmackDown, I'm fighting for me." And it's that kind of Breaking Bad-esque moment where he admits that this isn't about some glorious ideal. Sami just wants revenge. And it's this development of him from, like, this character who always needs to be the good guy, always needs to be the hero, because he's the good guy. He's fighting for great things. But that makes him very open. It makes him very vulnerable. And the Sami that goes into WrestleMania, he doesn't need to be the good guy. He just needs to have his principles, and he's fighting for his stuff. And I think it's a good little tiny development that lets Sami, because Sami has a rough 2018, and I think I love the tone of those last 3 months being kind of sad. Like, a lot of those last 3 months were heels winning a lot, and a very melancholy tone. We had a lot of really vicious beatdowns. We had a lot of very nasty stuff. Our main event feud for No Way Out was Taker versus Hero, both being largely heels in there. Taker was a babyface at the time, but I mean, you even said when he interfered in the match, and I agreed with you, that he was, totally just didn't give a shit. He was just a heel at that point.
And something that I definitely think is really interesting, and something you can ask, was about actually Kevin Owens.
Sure.
Did Kevin know all along? Because Kevin, like, to a degree,
no.
But what could?
No, I don't think Kevin knew anything.
Kevin was able to see something, or he was just being random bullshit heel trying to get into Zayn's head. But when he said, like, whatever he said, you're just as selfish as the rest of them. Eventually, you'll get to the top, and like, if people don't rally around your ideas, you don't even rally behind your ideas. It's all to get, like, you ahead or whatever.
That was definitely separate from what was going on with Cena, but I think that was definitely something where it was a character flaw with Sami. One that Cena also agreed with when he talked about Sami, was that it was all about these ideals, and because he made himself the good guy all the time, he was very often blind to flaws and issues that were going on. And with Owens, it annoyed him, because Owens is the quintessential, I admit I'm the bad guy character, and he hates that Sami won't do that.
He knows he's a terrible person.
But he thinks he's doing it for good reasons, and he very well is in a lot of ways. But he's like, yeah, I'm a bad guy, I don't care. But, I sleep well at night, unlike you probably, Sami, is like one of his lines. And yeah, no, and you said, like, what did Owens know? Not a lot. Like, when he came in, he got drafted normally through the normal drafting procedures of Pull.
Damn you, Pull.
And he didn't like SmackDown, because when Owens arrived, it very much was, not when he arrived, but for most of it, it was Sami Zayn SmackDown in a lot of ways. Sami did shape SmackDown when he won the title. It was a different place. I don't know why, specifically in this video that this comment was left, but one of the commenters, the consistent commentators, said wrestling really has been made fun again. And I looked at the video, I was like, this seems like a weird video to do it, but I do think the tone changed after Sami won the title, and it was a very jovial kind of atmosphere. And Owens didn't like that. He doesn't thrive under that. He's a lot like Cena. Modern Cena. He thinks conflict is the way to get the best out of people, and it's the only way to kind of get ahead. And I think that was what drove him.
That's another thing that's very interesting, is because we talk about and something even on Raw and stuff, where Owens, on both rosters actually, where Owens kind of corrupted the brand, and like, it was kind of, Kevin Owens was the thing where he tried to, like, it was almost this facade that everything was okay, and this Kevin Owens kind of effect led to a layer slowly starting to peel back, and then all of a sudden we got to the final layer, and there was John Cena smiling. It was like, oh fuck, no. I don't know where that was going, actually. I don't think that even applies to anything, but it was something I just had in my head, and I wanted to say it because it's a podcast, and you people can piss off.
So here's a new set of plans.
But he's just like, yeah, that was totally pointless.
This is one of those things that I liked keeping track of, although a lot of these didn't come to pass for various reasons, was if anybody, during King of the Ring, if anybody beat a champion, they would get added to this list, and I would try to work that into a feud at some point during the year, which I think I ended up doing with most of these, actually. Even R-Truth got a shot on a pre-show sometime. No, I think he actually got a main title shot. I don't remember. And also, for a time, I didn't do this for a lot of the shows, but when I was waiting for Tucker a lot in the slower months, I ended up just booking the shows and having it ready to go. Because this also...
was after
go on.
Mania, because that's when things got really slow.
Yeah, well, this is April, so it was immediately after Mania.
It's after Mania to about summer, when things were super slow, and then we kind of... The wheels got turning, and we made it to about January, and then we decided, nah, it's go time, and we pounded out the last 3 months in basically 2 weeks, a week and a half. Like, it was...
So yeah, what I ended up doing, because this was also when I was orating the booking to Tucker, I wasn't booking myself, so I had these all ready just to go.
That was a weird time. Would you like? Well, no, I shouldn't even ask.
The more questions, the better. Because
I was going to say, would you like better, the like saying things or booking it yourself? And I know the answer because
absolutely.
Yeah. I prefer you booking it yourself, anyways. That way,
I will say that I don't think this series would... No, definitely. The series would not be possible if we didn't orate it for a certain period of time. Because until the game save developed, it was unplayable for me to put my hands on it.
Yeah, that was a lot of it. Puddy didn't want a lot to do with it at the start. Like, like you were always
definitely
a lot involved in it, but it was a lot of hands-off involvement. How about that? It was only in these last couple months where... For the first time, Puddy actually got to make, like, consequential decisions, like, as himself, I guess. Like, it was only, like, the last couple of SmackDowns when he switched over to the newer style where we were just going to run it through afterwards, where...
We found, by the way, and me booking it and us running through it, I'm not sure for every series, but for this series... it was the perfect way to do it, and that's one regret, I guess, is that from a series perspective, not just from I'm glad I already did it at the start for my own sanity, but from just a series perspective, if we had done that from the start, me booking it and us running through, it would have been better.
Yeah, I definitely think that with, like I said, when your YouTube series is not playing TEW, and it's like this where you're telling a story, I think you have to go to a style where you're just running the show, because it's like the person's watching the show, and like it allows you as a creator and a content creator and even like just like a TEW player creator type deal, it allows you to have a lot more fun things planned. It allows you to swerve people. It allows you to leave them out, I guess, on the really cool things. Then when they happen, they get to have that really cool moment of, whoa. That's something I've always tried to do since. First of all, like when I first started, that wasn't my idea, of course, because I've always said that this is the first time I've ever been like, oh yeah, this is stories now. But it's definitely something I'm going to do further, and it's kind of... This series has done so much for me in terms of other stuff, not just like this series itself. Mm-hmm. Like this series, you are going to feel marks of this series in every single other thing I do from now on. Just different like little style things that I've discovered that work, that don't work, with different settings and situations. And my next series, I am kind of proud to say that it's like I'm going to legitimately try to write out almost everything I do, or at least have a very concrete idea of everything that happens, and like try to create the best possible product for it. Like promos, I'm going to try to script every single promo I do, and I can't say how long I'm going to keep that up because Puddy knows. I'm very lazy.
Not even that, like, and we'll talk about this in a second. This is actually my next bullet point.
Puddy's going to roast me right quick, folks.
No, but even like taking out your personal issues with hard work, we also have writing every promo is 1, time consuming and difficult, 2, doesn't have just immediate benefits, and 3, will burn you out very quickly. Unless you are in the head of every character you're writing for, it's going to mesh together, and it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I'm going to try to take that on. Like I said, I don't know how long I'll keep it up, and there may be points where all I will say is with my kind of main stars, I'm going to try to keep it as on the straight and narrow as possible. With kind of my other stuff, I can maybe go off and kind of freestyle some stuff, but with my main stuff, I really want to figure out what story I want to tell, how I want to tell it, and where I want it to end. I've gotten so far off track. This was about SmackDown.
Speaking of
I've
scripted
hijacked
promos, this right here,
everything.
this right here, what you're seeing on screen right now, is my very first scripted promo of the series, which bears emphasizing because all of the Great American Bash stuff, including the big Summer Rae promo, was unscripted. Of course, I had thought about what I wanted to say beforehand, but I never wrote it down. I believe the Tommaso Ciampa stuff was all unscripted as well. Although for some reason I recall writing one of those down, but I don't think I actually did.
I swear I've seen the one that you wrote down. You definitely did write one.
I wrote bullet points, I think.
The Parasite one, right?
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is that, no, I didn't. That's the thing, is I loved that promo in my head before I did it, and I was worried because I don't think I did it that much justice, and I said to you afterwards that went so much better when I was, like, orating it before, and I wish I'd wrote it down, and that's kind of why I went and I wrote this Owens promo down, which was I think the first one that I actually wrote. And this scripted promo thing that I ended up doing, I think, is very interesting because this was about a year and a half into the in-game series, or maybe a year in. It was over a year because it was
a year and a half. December, correct?
It was around December.
Yeah, year and a half.
And it has a lot to do with what I've talked to Charles TEW Gaming about recently about snowball booking, and I think it's genuinely a really important tool. And I've done it in pretty much anything I've ever booked, and this is why I struggle to book important moments at the very start of my saves. Like, I can't just come in at, like, No Way Out and be like, hey, I'm picking the story up midway, because my style of booking is very much snowball booking, and I need to have a start, and a like, humble beginnings start. And the way I like what I mean by snowball booking is that you take a few characters and you start with very simple character ideas. This guy is a good guy who has a nice smile. This guy is a bad guy who does not like cheating for some reason. He's just flamboyant and doesn't like cheating. And then you build off that. You say, this guy comes out and he cuts a promo on him. You just give the outline, the basic outlines, and you do that for a couple months through a couple feuds, a couple interactions, a couple dynamics, and you get to see that character develop, and you start to get that picture in your head, and you book people more. You book people more intricately the longer you book them for. So at the start, you're just giving bullet points, and then maybe a couple months in, you're not scripting promos, but you're maybe talking as them when you're giving the promos because you know what they'd say by now, and then eventually. When you're doing storyline threads that are as complicated as some of the SmackDown ones became, I got to the point where I was like, yeah, I could probably ad-lib everything here, but there are a few kind of killer lines that I'd like to have emphasized. So I wrote, I think, 4 promos this entire series, or maybe 5, something like that. And this was the first one, and it was like, yeah, I actually have a genuine understanding of these characters now, and I can actually write the promos about them. And all power to you to do all of the promo writing. I'm sure it'll turn out fine. I hope it works for you. But certainly something I would never do because I feel like building up to the most important promos being the ones that take 10 minutes that I've wrote down on paper is way more important because 1, I'll be prepared for it. I'll have the characters in my head by then. And 2, it makes sure that those promos feel important just naturally. The little promos backstage, they get, yeah, this guy talks about this. Because it's not that important, but the big babyface turn promo where you talk about how you've come to God, the Michael Hayes promo, yeah, sure, you script that and you write it down. And I think if you look at the series, I mean, there are some promos that stand out, like the Summer Rae one, the Tommaso one, that weren't scripted, but absolutely, and I think these are the only promos where afterwards you've told me these are the best promos of the series, and essentially I think you've told me that after all 4 of these, and they are like the 4 big promos that, and you can tell that they're some of the most thought out promos in the entire series, and they stand out. So like this promo from Owens, the promo from Cena after when he explains everything, the last promo from Zayn. I think it's actually just those 3, and then those are the 3 that ended up getting scripted out, and they stand out so much versus everything else.
I am like scribbling down mental notes like crazy right now because I'm going to do that now.
No, don't. I genuinely think you should continue with your idea of scripting everything out because it would be a very high level of quality. And I think you should try it. I think you should try it.
Okay, how about this then? I will make sure something I'm going to keep in my head then is that make sure that when there's a big promo, it's obviously a big promo. But if that means that making other promos a little bit less either in like length or in detail or something like that, then do so. Because I definitely want that effect that you had, because this is, like I said, all 3 of these promos. I don't even know what I think is the best one. Probably still the Cena one, probably just because it has so much just like crazy shit in it. Like that's like it's been running that long, and that's because of that, and that's because of that.
Yeah.
It all ties together, and it's like, oh my god.
And one of the cool things about that one was that I don't know what was happening that day, but it was like 3/4 of the way done, and I couldn't finish it that day for some reason. And we got to Raw, and you guys might remember, you'll remember probably, Tucker, I was writing the end of it during Raw. And it was quite rushed, and it was quite hustle to get it all down on paper. Obviously, I knew pretty much everything that was being said, but getting it all down on paper was quite rushed. And at the end, and I didn't recheck a lot of the stuff I had written during Raw. And after I finished it, I was like, this is the most important promo in the series, and I haven't spent as much time on it as I hoped, and it's going to come out terribly. And the words on the paper weren't that amazing. And then we got to SmackDown, I delivered it, I was like, oh, I think I've made that slightly better than it was on paper. But even then, I'm not sure the stuff that's there was that much, and it got a great reaction, so I'm really happy that happened.
The best thing is, like, I'm over here, like, well, that's amazing. Well, that's amazing. And then, like, Puddy's just like, yeah, I could have done that better. And I'm just over here like, okay, right, yeah.
I just remember, like, during the recording, I finished, and you were just silence.
Yeah, I actually had to pause it. Like, I was just like, oh my god. It was so
I told you, like, that's the promo.
There's never been anything like that ever in TEW at all. This is, like, nothing has been ever that tightly done and well written and, like, well thought out.
The fun thing is it wasn't that tight. There were a lot of loose areas, but you can do a lot of shenanigans if you try hard enough, and you can make things seem very tight.
That's the thing. It's all word choice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If it seems like something the person would say in a way that they would say it, you can get away with things that, like.
I bet if Oda looked at a lot of that stuff over the last couple of months, if he's still watching the series. Oh yeah, he obviously is. He talked about it the other day.
Sorry about that, Oda. Sorry about that one video.
Yeah, if it is blocked in your country, not just on your device, get in touch with me, and I think I may have some ways to get it to you. Anyway, just get in touch if you're watching and it is blocked in your. If you have no way of watching Clash in Chicago, Oda, still, just get in contact via the YouTube comments or Twitter or direct messages on YouTube or anything like that, and Tucker gives me access back to his channel for that one day. I might be able to make a new version through the YouTube editor with that one promo cut out. It's not a huge deal. But oh shit, if Oda's still watching the series and he's watched all that stuff, he's kind of the logic guy I found on a couple of videos. He called me out on my logic the other day, Lee, and I bet he, if he looked hard enough, there are a good few plot holes in the John Cena conspiracy. But
the thing is that I would like, I'm thinking right now, I'm trying to think of something. I'm like, I couldn't, because, like, at the time I was so just, like, fucking mind blown by the whole thing.
I think probably the biggest one is who knows and who doesn't. In the redone version, because I kind of retconned a few bits towards, like, the end of 2017, and it's like, okay, these people know. And eventually it turned out nobody knew. Because it was Cena and Hero knew everything. AJ knew a bit. Nobody else knew anything. And that was better, because you start to run into these problems if, Enda knew. Cesaro knew. And you start to think, if they knew, wouldn't they have done this differently? And what's good is that in a lot of ways, a lot of people are kept out of the loop in the final version.
That was something that, like, when I asked you earlier, how much did Kevin know? Because then I started to think about it. I'm like, how much did everybody else know? Because all we know is that, like, those 3 guys, well, the 2 of them knew everything, and AJ knew a little bit. Nobody else knew anything. And I was like, how much does everybody else know? I'm like, because if so, like, if you had like, always intended for certain things, it would be really cool if you could go back and, like, little things are different. It all kind of adds up. That would be, like, a crazy amount of effort and stuff that, you never expect for anybody to do ever. But that's something that would be insane if it was done.
Do you want to know a cool little retcon that I added in December? And this is only a minor part of the Cena promo, because again I added it quite late, but I thought it was quite cool, is that Cena did not originally send Tommaso and Summer to SmackDown, but I realized that would have totally made sense, and there was no like holes there, so I added it into the promo. That was not originally the plan for those two, but I noticed, those were two big feuds. Cena's the big bad, he can be behind it. And I thought that was a cool little addition I added in there. You want to see the... I'm going to show one more little plan to the audience here. This is the final... this is the final episode of SmackDown. I've got the full promo from Sami there, and I also have the week plan. I really liked this episode, and I got to plan through, like, how is the week going to go? And and that was what I was doing for the final episode of SmackDown, which was
who was the figure?
In the rough neighborhood, I didn't have anyone for it. It was there as a plot device. It wasn't anyone important.
Also, rough neighborhood.
I know.
Damn it, Puddy.
Nobody was intended to see this. I was going to speak it out loud. I don't give a shit. Look, everything's misspelled. I got envisioned with an I and an E. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't write.
If you guys don't know, but this is an ongoing thing where Puddy spells things wrong, and I have like a full on like mental breakdown because of it.
Well, especially in stuff because you like I spell shit wrong in important stuff, and I should fix that. But like this stuff was never meant to be read. It was meant to be read. It was meant to be talked. So I didn't really give a shit if it was wrong. Sometimes I just say like Tana or something, and I'll say it out loud as Tanahashi, or KD. I'll say it eventually as Kings Eventually Die. So yeah, my notes were quite scrawled for a little bit. So one thing, I don't know how to talk about it exactly, but there is one thing I wanted to talk about in this section somehow, and I actually like your perspective, maybe questions about it, were the quieter periods of SmackDown throughout the series, because there were a few, and I do think they're failings to some extent. I like that at the end of the series I had kind of remedied it, because something like the No Mercy to Survivor Series period would have on any other part of the series been a down period, but I came up with this idea to put Owens in a big feud with Sami, and that made it an important one of the best sections of the series. But like I didn't do that for Judgment Day. It was like, yes, Sami and Chris go to Japan to fight over the IC title, which, you know, and you look at like the KD reign, and it's like this was very like Shield-esque except without the Shield. And I wondered if you had any opinions on the down periods of SmackDown, and any questions that would help me flesh out why those didn't quite work.
Not totally, I guess, just because of how impactful the last couple months were.
Yeah.
With me with SmackDown, it always felt like everything was deliberate enough where I didn't feel like there was any point where it was like, wow, this is really nothingness. There was always enough direction and enough. The best thing and stuff that I want to get better at is that everything on SmackDown, at least to a degree, seemed deliberate. Everything had a purpose, and everything was there for a reason. And like, it's part of the reason why I feel like your like mid-card and stuff was so much stronger than mine, is because all the guys there were there for a reason and purposeful. And near the end, it kind of fell apart a bit because it felt like a whole bunch of people got left behind. Rest in peace, Tommy End.
Yes, definitely Tommy End. And Brock Lesnar to some extent.
Lesnar just disappeared, fell off the mat. There's another guy in that stable.
I'll give you the full. It's AJ.
There was another man.
It's AJ, Kenny, Doc.
Kenny disappeared too,
He didn't. Kenny had a really good King of the Ring. He had a no way out feud. He was in Money in the Bank.
Tommy got
destroyed. One thing with Lesnar disappearing though, and I should have had, it was a scrapped storyline plot with Lesnar and Tommy would have been involved, and Tommy was always on screen. At least he was seen as like talk buddy for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
But with Lesnar, I was going to have this be, and they were going to do stuff at Mania and stuff, but like there was going to be a plot thread over the last couple of months where, because obviously the SmackDown 7 fell apart after Cena's promo, because they were all like, this is weird, chill, I'm out. And there's going to be a plot point where like Lesnar goes to Carl and Doc and says, alright, you're going to come help me with my match or something, and then Carl and Doc say, it's over. And then similar to my Tyrador character from Oli, Brock would get really pissed and be like, no, it's over when I say it's over, and say stuff like that. And then the other element was Brock was there because the title was there. because there was lots of money in the state. Brock was never like allied to the cause. He didn't like AJ.
Yeah,
he didn't like Cena.
It was very apparent that he was just there to get paid because he was so distant from everybody else.
Yeah, and when AJ lost the title at Survivor Series, even before Cena's speech, Brock was already being very distant because he just didn't like. Of course, they could get the title back, and Hero eventually did, but I mean, a lot of the reason why Brock was there had kind of ceased to be the case, and without Paul Heyman, and without the Seven, I don't have a lot for Brock. But one of the things you mentioned about my mid card is I really relished, and in fact, my eyes were too big for my stomach in a couple of areas, having these just little tiny mid-card feuds where I can build someone and then they're fine to lose. That's why I took people like Fandango, and I was like, oh, I could have a really interesting 3-week feud with him, and then he could job for the rest of the series, and it would be fine. But I don't know. I never. It's lumped in there with that. I wish I had told more single episode stories. With it's like I wish I had told more mid card feuds, because I actually, as much as it was nominated for the award, I actually really liked what I did with Tyson Kidd, because it filled a lot of airtime, it generated emotions, and then it created a jobber, and that's one of my favorite things to do with mid carders: fill airtime, create emotion, create a jobber. That's what mid card storylines are meant to do. It's what R-Truth's big Old Fucks division storyline did. R-Truth was a great jobber to have throughout 2017.
He was. Yeah, he became very credible very fast.
Yep.
Along with Bo as well.
Yep, Bo helped. I wish I had done more with that tag team and that relationship, but they had one. I'm not sure whether this was a scrapped idea. I think it was an actual idea. I believe either Bo or Ron or both ended up feuding with Joe around the summer over the IC title for a short time, and that was like their final big coup de grace.
Ron, I think, right?
Say again?
Ron, I believe, correct?
Yeah, probably. I think it was intentionally meant.
I think it happened actually, if I recall correctly, but I might be wrong. Who knows?
I think it ended up happening, and it was small, but it was about what I wanted it to be. And yeah, I think a lot of people ended up serving their purpose. Ciampa could have jobbed more, but I think I was happy with him kind of fucking off after the feud and being like a looming presence that could come back one day. I can't think of too many other people that I really threw to the wayside and I was like, I'm sorry. There was, I think, I'm not sure what I would have done differently with Bray. I don't know. I didn't have Eric for a lot of it, did I? Or Luke, one of the two.
Eric was hurt for a lot of the series.
Yeah.
Eric is one of the injury-prone guys that just kind of got injury-prone over the series.
And that hurt because obviously you know me, I like to some extent book what I want to see. And I don't want to see Bray wrestling in a prominent position. And that's why towards the end of his SmackDown run he was a manager. Sadly we didn't have a lot of storyline for that, but I think that is his better position. It's managing Harper maybe, because Harper is a singles guy.
It's interesting because that's very similar to what I have, where like I wanted to do more with the Wyatt family, but it was very different reasons for you versus me. Where for me it was I wanted to put Bray at the top, at least for the storyline purpose, and I couldn't swing it. I just didn't have enough time because it was the Neville Ricochet idea all the way through. And then I decided, like, when you pitched the Owens idea, that it was going to be the Owens idea, and then I could just never get Bray anywhere near the belt, which eventually led him to doing the thing with Roman, which you also pitched. Damn it, you pitched a lot of my stuff.
I mean, if I pitch ideas that you eventually use, that means that I was engaged enough in your characters to pitch the ideas.
Fair enough. And literally, the Roman Bray stuff literally exists because of a single GIF.
Yes, that I showed you. I was like, come on.
And I remember that happening on TV because when you showed me it, I was like, I remember this, and it was so fucking cool.
It was really good,
and I needed it.
And we were seeing the Randy stuff too at the time.
Yes, and
which was very good.
Tried to not do the Randy stuff.
Yeah.
But it was so similar. A lot. It was interesting because a lot of the stuff in the series reflected a lot of real world stuff, but a lot of our stuff was set in place before the real world stuff happened.
Yeah, like Alexa Bliss winning the title.
Yeah, that was.
It was set in place, but it happened in real life before I did it.
Yeah, and that was a lot of it because we got so slow at one point.
And also, the first
Totally my
women's
fault.
main event of a pay-per-view was set in place, I think, a couple months before they did it, but we didn't end up doing it until after.
There was a
other
point
stuff.
where both of our champions,
With exactly say, yeah, we had Owens and Styles.
that was very interesting because it was never like fully intended like that. It was just a lot of, you looked over what they were doing, you looked at what we were doing. It was very similar.
Yeah.
But
of course, very different as to those two champions and what they were up to.
Yes, they were very different than the real world characters. My Owens especially, because I think my Owens, your Owens, they're the same. They're the same character, more or less. It's just on a different plane.
You were very afraid to get Owens back. Actually, we'll talk about this in a little bit.
Scared. Yeah, I'm so scared to fuck him up. That's all
you
I'll
did
say.
very well. That's my crux of my argument. We'll talk about it a bit more later, but I think you did very, very well for how scared you were.
Thank you.
We're gonna finish. We'll finish off SmackDown there. I think we've talked enough about it. One thing I just thought that came into my head, and this might not happen, but I'm gonna put it on air to put Tucker in a pressure position.
Oh no.
We talked quite briefly about the shows and the backstory and stuff, and I would like if people are interested, if you are interested in leaving questions in the comments, and if we get like 8 or more of them, and Tucker is down, I'd be willing to come back for one more podcast style video where we do a Q&A with the questions from this
1000%.
video.
That was something I was actually wondering at one point. I was like, would it almost be better if we did this like a stream type thing where we like took questions, because and I was glad that you kind of opened it with asking questions, because I was very like, shit, I should have like wrote down questions or something like that, because I think definitely, yeah, I definitely 1010% be down to revisit this with some fan questions.
If we don't get a ton of questions, if that isn't out there, that's fine. This will be the final epilogue. But if you do have questions,
if there are only like 4 or so, I'm sure we could just respond in the comments.
Yeah.
So your questions will be answered no matter what if you ask them. But either they're going to be in video format or they'll be.
If we get enough to talk for around like 40 minutes or an hour, we'll do that.
1000%.
All right, so I want to move on. So the times we work together, there are a lot of these. Every single draft except for the first one, which we did legit. We obviously worked out the picks. Even the poll one.
Even the poll one. The jig is up. Poll had nothing to do with the draft. Oh my god. And something like, so I had to fake a lot of emotion for that one, and I hope I did it well enough to where it was at least a little bit.
I know you were mad at me after that because you didn't think I did it well on the poll episode, and you thought I had given some stuff away.
That sounds like such an asshole move from me.
No, you wasn't that bad. It's not like you were screaming at me or anything, but you were like,
I was like, Puddy, I put some effort in this.
But you were like, you had said afterwards, like, oh, you thought I'd given stuff away at times. They're just like, okay, my bad.
I think it might have just been the way you had said certain things.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, like we I don't remember what it was. Like, what am I gonna do?
Oh,
now?
that what it was. I think it was like an USO, right? You got drafted in USO or something. I can't remember.
I drafted a single USO, and you were like, oh wow, why is that happening?
No, I think I like predicted that you'd get drafted a single USO. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, you were like you got an USO or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was as soon as you said that, I remember going very quiet and just kind of being like, oh, okay. I was like, I see. I'm like, I see what we're doing here.
Oh, on the before we move into like the stuff we cooperated on, I want to mention one thing because I've been like dying to mention this in shoot. It happened a couple of weeks ago while we're talking about spoiling things. Is that I luckily like it's a mini accident. A couple of weeks ago, I said that the main event, the SmackDown main event was Sammy versus Johnny versus Chris Hero. Before those three had been confirmed for the fake main event.
That was the legitimate main event at one point too, which was funny because it was
it wasn't.
It was that SmackDown that you announced it, and it was on Raw. You just said it passingly in a conversation, and I brought it up afterwards, and you were like, "Yeah, I don't think anybody will notice though," and nobody did.
No, the reason why I thought it was fine was mainly, people might not notice, but also that was never the main event. Right?
It was at one point, wasn't it?
No,
or
it was never
the fake main event or something.
Yeah, it was always gonna be the fake main event, but it was never actually going to happen. It was always going to be Sami versus John Cena. Always going to be that.
Very, very just little funny thing though, yeah, because I remember that. I remember being so like, what? I'm like, oh no, Puddy, were you meant to say that? I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna have to edit this, aren't I?
Yeah, no, and I even stopped for a second and was like, can I ask him to cut? We're too far into the part, and I came to just like, you know what? It's actually, again, it's not actually the main event, but it's okay. It's fine.
Even that, I don't think anybody saw it. You could probably go back and find it now.
Yeah, it's the. I think it's either the go home to King of the Ring or the go home to No Way Out on Raw's side. It's on the Raw video for that. So.
Yeah. Somebody just passingly mentions it. So yeah, you're gonna have to dig for it. That's all I'll say. But
so yeah, we worked on all the drafts together.
We worked on all the draft
shows.
Survivor Series, Royal Rumble stuff.
Yeah, all the cross-branded stuff we booked usually together in some sort of council style. We worked out times and stuff. I usually took more time than I was meant to. I'll admit to that. They were more than usual. I think I'm probably the guy who took the most time on the interbranded shows. Oh, we should mention this because we never mentioned this on camera. So you guys may or may not be aware that Tucker and I worked out that we would split the main events of cross-branded shows at the start. So I think for the first year you got SummerSlam and Rumble, and I got Survivor Series and Mania. And then for the second year it would be flipped. I would get.
Is it the?
Yeah.
Is it what I think it is? This point, because it's pretty interesting.
So for one reason or another, throughout the series, every time Tucker was supposed to have the main event, aside from one, I think, the SummerSlam 2016 one,
which was terrible.
So that was the very first one. Aside from that, every other time Tucker is supposed to have the main event, something has happened that has convinced him otherwise. So for the Rumble 2017, we put the Rumble match on last
because we felt it was right, I guess.
You didn't feel too confident in your match from a storytelling perspective.
Basically, it turned from me not being too confident in my match, even at the end, to where the fan vote for Mania. I ended up voting for Puddy's Zayn versus Cena match because I knew what I wanted my finish to be of Owens McMahon, and I didn't want to put that on last because I wasn't sure if people were going to be like, oh, you can't end the WrestleMania main event with bullshit interference.
Oh, no, I would have loved that. I think that would have been a good end to the show.
That was the reason why I was so, like, yes, we're doing this at the end. Like, even, like...
See, that's why I pushed one for the Apollo thing over the Miz thing, because... if that had won the main event thing, I think the Apollo close would have been amazing. And I was absolutely, when I finally, because there were a few main event ideas that you had since like November that
Owens Cesaro was the main event.
That was a good one
until Cesaro got hurt.
You had Bray in there somewhere. You had Naito in there somewhere. You had weird stuff in there where you wouldn't go full hog with Vince or something. There were a few ideas where I thought, I really hope that's not the Mania main event. But when we got to the show finally, and it was Owens Vince, great idea, great match, and we had the Apollo close that I was aware of. When I knew that, I was like, oh, if that wins the vote, great. That is a good ending to the show. I'm very happy with that. But going back to the original point, after that Rumble where you didn't feel too confident in your match, we had Survivor Series. Yeah, it was Survivor Series after that, where
Survivor Series match on last.
Yeah, because you didn't like. I think it was Miz Cesaro.
And it was just so weakly built.
Yep.
So that was one of my really downer points.
And we ended up putting a lot of effort into that Survivor Series. You did, actually. You did more work than I did for that Survivor Series tag. And I thought
it was cool
a
enough, anyways, where I felt like it worked at the end of the day. And it wasn't even really for anything aside from good old-fashioned bragging rights, but I felt like we hyped it up enough to where it felt meaningful. At least I did as telling the story along with you. I think we both felt like it was something worth excitement, I guess.
Oh yeah, I thought that was a very good main event.
I think it's like I always enjoy the Rumble / Survivor Series stuff when we work on matches together.
Yeah. It's the most editing we do in a year. We do a lot of editing sometimes for big matches, but that's the most editing we do in a year.
Well, because we literally say every single thing that happens.
Not everything, but like we say a lot.
Most of what happens, like, because of course there are things in between and stuff, and that goes back to.
But yeah, the final one that you were supposed to have was this Mania, and I originally pitched. This was a long time. This was like just after SummerSlam, where I pitched the fan vote idea because Naito was still a very big part of your main event, and I thought
Naito was supposed to main event against Owens. That was
Owens or Vince or Cesaro. Something was supposed to happen there, and I pitched the fan vote for two reasons. One, Naito was a big part of the main event. I thought it made sense, and it would have been cool for stuff afterwards for him to be fucked over by another fan vote, or if he had won the fan vote, that would have been some nice, sweet justice. And the other reason is because I knew by that point very clearly that I was doing Sami Cena, and that while I was fine with it going on the undercard, just like with Survivor Series, where I put on Sami AJ, the big finale, and I was telling you for a couple of months that like this in real life this would just suck the atmosphere out of the building. I thought the same about Sami Cena. I was like, if this doesn't go on last, this is the feud of my side of the series. In a lot of ways, the pacing's going to feel a bit off. So that I did have intentions to put that out there as the main event.
And I did my best also to try to justify the fan vote still after.
Yeah, because after we came to the point where we.
Or whatever, all of a sudden we were like, we're still doing the fan vote, eh? And I was like,
how do we do it?
Fuck, how do I swing that? And so I tried to very quickly make Owens be like, I don't even care about WrestleMania.
Yep.
And then Shane trying to spite him can be like, fine, you don't get WrestleMania if they don't think you get WrestleMania.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't like, because you did prematurely cut off my Titan Towers manga that I was watching.
I know. It should have gone on longer.
It should have gone on longer, and we should have had Los Ingobernables de Denny's.
Like reasons for it to be there, though, because like we started to fight some.
Because I remember you were originally going to have it be one episode, and I'm so glad that I got you to turn it into a saga because it was so good. It was, in my opinion, the best stuff you did this series. And it was really, really good. And I literally...
It's like Chris Jericho, an enjoyable character.
Yeah, to me, of all people.
Yeah.
I pitched... Not pitched, but I pitched parts of it and supported parts of it when it started. But once it started, like from the minute that that saga began to the end, I didn't pitch anything. Like
a lot of it was off the cuff. Like almost all of it was just me going, what's funny, what works, what's kind of cool, what's dark. The Jericho smile beam thing or whatever literally came to my head somehow because I was thinking, oh, what I'll do is I'll have like Apollo blow like the beams back with his smile, and I'm like, oh wait, but I'm trying to like develop Jericho as this character that's kind of more in these things. He was like, he's looking for a friend, and I'm oh my god, he can use the jacket. The jacket can bounce shit off of it, and so that kind of just came together in my head. I literally thought of that in 5 seconds while I was like waiting to say something else. Like as somebody who doesn't think they're very good at thinking on their feet at a whole lot of things, I do have to give myself props for that because I don't know how I came up with that so fast. Like unless I actually did think about it earlier, which I don't think I did. I don't remember these things. Things happen, and I'm like, yeah, I totally thought of that. And
I remember showing up to every... Because, like I said, I didn't have anything to do with it once it started. And I remember showing up to every episode recording session thinking, what's next? And actually looking forward to hearing it. And I enjoyed, like, I think all of those episodes. And again, I thought there were a few issues, obviously, like I had with like pacing. I thought you should have had progress. Like, you spent a month there with them fighting in the depths and stuff. And I thought it would have been cool if they then moved on. And there was a bit of sense to it, like, oh, now they're in the upper towers and they're fighting something else.
Well, that's what was going to happen, and then I had realized at one point that I had too many people happen too fast, and I was like, it's not going to work. I'm like, I'd have to, like, rush it at the end, and then that's when all of a sudden I saw an out.
And it would have been cool if you had, like,
I can let this die a terrible death, or... Yeah, and that was the whole thing. Basically, my idea of it literally was the Phantom Menace. When the two groups split up to try, Puddy's like, oh, to try to go attack attack Newt Gunroy, who's the Trade Federation. Basically, the group splits up and they fight through different parts. And they finally come together and they rush the throne room, and it's a really I mean, as much as the prequel Star Wars movies are like very badly thought of, I don't think they're that terrible. I think they're all right movies. That was literally my idea, though. That's what I took with me when I was doing this. That was my overarching idea with them starting in two different places. And then, rest in peace, No Way Jose.
Yeah. And the big opportunity that I think you missed with that is not having the fights be custom-made matches. Which I definitely think you should have done, because one, it would have filled matches on the card. It would have meant that you could have spent half of the show doing it, and you wouldn't have had this. And I know you struggled with this, and I thought it was fine. I thought there was ways to explain it, but you struggled with it. Was switching from the Titan Tower stuff to the modern day Raw stuff, and you really didn't like that. You had a lot of trouble with doing those switches.
A lot of it with where I felt like I struggled was because I didn't have an explanation, and so when I started to come to terms with it, it was because I decided there would be no explanation. Figure it out yourself. Who knows? Who knows what's happening right now? Like I was like, I had literally just decided that.
You tried to make the problem was
even comedic that like, wait, how is that happening? But this is happening, and like we go from like these big fights to just like this guy beats this guy, and it'd be like, what?
It ended up being like the Titan Tower Siege stuff ended up being vignettes on the show, and it just ended up fitting around a regular wrestling show, and I think it would have been paced better if it just was half the show. Like the first hour of the show, the matches are in Titan Towers. They're not like, because you've got street fights, you can make the matches whatever you want, right?
Right.
And you can just make it fight in Titan Towers, and there is no like victory condition. They're all just draws because they don't end. There's no finish. And you could have done it that way, and then of course you could have had more progress to it. In January, they could have moved up, and maybe they were fighting groups of Ingobernables, like they killed Evil and
my main
Bushi
event
at the
of
same time.
WrestleMania could have been them rushing the throne room of Tetsuya Naito. That's the end.
Well, one thing you could have done is that you could have had it finish up around February with a fail, like, because that would have been. I think that's a really cool element too, and that's something I wanted to do on my show. Was like the good guys lose, or like the initiators lose.
Oh yeah, Vince was never going to win that.
Yeah.
He just wasn't, just because.
But then you could have had. Another suggestion I had for you was that you would spend a month where Naito is just oppressing champion Vince, like sending like big fuckers at him and shit, just trying to get the belt off of him, just turn Vince into the good guy for a month, because I think that would have been very entertaining. And then you could have kept Naito as the authority figure, had the Vince Owens match, which was fucking like that's the match for sure for me personally, was the Vince Owens thing after Stone Cold got his contract problems.
Damn, I'm so angry about that, because I'm glad it worked out, because I really didn't want to do that, but I would have done it had it had made sense. Like, had it have worked, I would have done it, as much as I didn't really want to do it. But yeah, Stone Cold's contract didn't allow him to work in ring dates, and it changed everything pretty much for the series, for at least my side. Like the last couple months, we very quickly were like, oh shit, oh no, that's not good.
So the biggest thread that we worked on together was Chris Hero, Kevin Owens, and Jimmy Uso with their brand jumping.
One of these things is not like the other.
So, how do you want to start off? Do you want to know how this? Do you want to explain how this kind of started with the Hero and Owens jumping thing? Because you actually pitched the idea. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I don't totally remember. I'm trying to I don't remember how I pitched it or how it started.
I think you pitched it as someone goes to the other brand through the draft, but is being sent there to fuck shit up and come back.
And that's something we need to touch on later too. What that originally was, because that's
the
big fun. What we wanted to do at some point was brand invasion.
Sure. Yeah.
As needs to happen, and I tried to.
Have we ever said on screen when you first approached me with like, when will we do a brand invasion? Have we ever said on screen what my response to that was?
No.
WrestleMania 35. I said I had everything planned up to WrestleMania 34, and we would have.
When we get into. Did you have up until this Mania? Did you have up until next Mania?
No, I had up until next Mania, but parts of the build to next Mania have been squashed into stuff I've just done. So
okay, because that makes, because I was about to say, I'm like, because I know originally when I was, because this series, folks, wasn't supposed to end like now.
Well,
we made a call to end now
a while ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I mean, it was always, like ever since it was probably like 2-3 months in game before we announced it. We decided, like probably about SummerSlam when we decided we were going to end it at Mania. It was actually probably the SummerSlam session where we were like, we're going to end at Mania.
No, because SummerSlam we announced it.
It was before then.
Holy it was a long time before then. It was just after Mania when things were going slow.
Yeah, and we kind of just decided that rather than letting it get like this again, and it only got slower, we would just kill it next Mania, and it was a good decision. But yeah, Puddy had like 2 years of content already booked out.
Yep. Because this was
I
obviously
was doing things weekly, but on the fly, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Because this was obviously the big reveal, and parts of it were going to be after Mania too. But there was going to be the fallout from that then, and rebuilding the SmackDown world was going to be the next year. It was going to be kind of an off year, where it was like, Jesus, everything we lived was a lie. How can we live with ourselves? What are we going to do? Let's find out. That was going to be a big year thing, and then I was going to end it with a I don't remember what the match was. It was something. It was like it was AJ Sammy again or something. But no, it wasn't AJ Sammy, because AJ was always going to be done pretty much. But
that's something else we'll touch on. Everything is like we'll touch on that later.
This is why we need more videos, but we can't talk for that long. But shit. Oh yeah. So I was going to do it at WrestleMania. But we don't really have a ton of plans for the brand invasion. But what we did have a ton of plans for was Chris Hero and Kevin Owens. I
did my best to kind of drop the only breadcrumb I could.
Yo, yeah, that was your idea, and that was fun.
Puddy had no idea that I did it, and I just went, if I want to when I'm giving the save to somebody else, and I want to give them anything for a brand invasion, if they wanted to do it right away, if they wanted to drop what we were doing and just have whatever, I'm like, this is what I will give you. And it was the go home of Raw, and Vince's segment where he said, I'm going to inject John Cena's vision with a lethal dose of sports entertainment.
No, that wasn't the go home. It was the week before the go home.
No, it was the go home.
No, the show in Madison Square Garden is when Vince said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the go home. It was the week before the go home.
No, the go home, we were in MSG.
Nope. Oh, you might be right, actually, because I'm thinking Sammy was there the night after. Yeah, you're right. Yep. For some reason, I swear there was a week. You came into that show like, this is a really boring go home. And it was in MSG, and I was like, the fuck you talking about?
Yeah, but anyways, that was kind of my only thing that I could give anybody. And the best
well, that's not
idea.
true. You had an idea in December-ish. No, it wasn't even December. I think it was around the fucking draft with Paul. That you were, from there on, you had this idea to tease, shoot tension between us. That you really delivered on. Yeah,
I wanted to tease tension, and I wanted to have it climax with me. This was my idea. I never even told you this, I don't think. Was if we kept going with the thing where you told me what to book, I would pause it, and I would tell you that you're going to tell me to book the other thing. Because then I was going to book it wrong and run the show anyways.
Oh,
and I was gonna,
that's cool.
And I was going to be like, I'm done playing second fiddle now, all right?
So,
you want to have big matches? I'm going to fuck over your big matches.
No, I think you explained that a little iffy, because I didn't understand it until what you're saying is that when you were booking SmackDown for me, right?
Yes. I was going to, before we got to like a main event of like a pay-per-view, and it's like, say it was like, oh yeah, in this situation, say it was like the Survivor Series main event or something like that with Sami Zayn going over AJ Styles.
That wasn't the main event of Survivor Series.
Tell me that. What's that?
That wasn't the main event of Survivor Series.
What the fuck was the main event of Survivor Series?
The Survivor Series match.
Oh shit! What was the main event of what show did?
Sami did beat AJ on that show, the big match, but that wasn't the main event.
Oh, weird. Whatever, it can work for that too, but it would have been some kind of big match. Whenever we decided to like have it happen, where I was going to just basically, that was the way I was going to trigger it. I was going to, like, when I had decided that it
would have made you such a huge heel too, if like, all of the
and I wanted you, and I was just going to tell you to, like, it was literally going to be like crazy, like I've gone insane style, where I was going to just stop the recording. I was going to tell you, you're going to tell me to book the other person, and you're going to roll with it. And then, like, you would have been like, all right, AJ goes over Sammy, and I'd say, no, I think Sammy wins.
No, well, if you had done it the other way, it would have been really cool, because all of the in kayfabe blockades of Sammy have been dealt with. The usual, like, oh, this bullshit gets thrown at the face, right?
And that could have been, your thing too, where the hero loses.
Yeah, where Sammy loses at SummerSlam at Survivor Series because you fuck him over, and now you're the heel.
Oh my god, and we can literally say, I'm Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we had it right in front of us. Damn.
No, I'm glad we didn't do that.
I'm glad we didn't as well. But that's fun to look back.
But it's a cool idea.
I think that's part of the reason why I kind of wanted to do this too, is have those situations where I can look back and be like, that would have been crazy cool. Yeah. But I'm glad we did. I'm definitely glad we did it our way, because we have definitely two stronger brands, to the point where if there was a brand warfare, I think that
there is genuine culture.
Raw would only get maybe massacred versus completely massacred, run away.
And if there was ever a brand split and brand war, and we were booking it, I would absolutely push for Raw to win it, 100%. Because I think it would be fun, and even have some sort of like war-style occupation afterwards, where SmackDown is like occupied by Raw, SmackDown's now the developmental vet, and like every time like they just take our champions off us every now and then, and then we as a promotion become the underdog.
We we wouldn't have legitimately done it, but we could have said that we took away your TV deal with USA. And been like, no, you're on the network now.
We're on the network now. Yeah. That would have been cool. But I definitely think the brand split stuff's cool. But we need to talk about Chris Hero and Kevin Owens, because it was a really big...
Keep dancing around that. That is the big thing. Because apparently it was my idea at some point.
So yeah, you brought it up to have a brand split. What your idea was, you thought it'd be really cool if a brand sent an agent to a brand on purpose. That was your big idea. It was like the brand, whether it's Raw or SmackDown, sent that person there.
That became the Summer Rae idea, kind of, didn't it?
No, this was after Summer Rae.
No, but I swear I pitched it before Summer Rae.
You might have, but I remember that
you took like a certain element of it.
No, the pitch turned into the Chris Hero thing because I realized that Chris Hero was good. Because I remember I was toying with who was going to be Gargano's opponent at Mania, who was going to be the WWE champion, and I asked you, like,
me,
big heel.
I said Ciampa because I was like, I don't know, Ciampa, and you were like, that kind of works.
Yeah, or like Brock. Brock was the original idea, by the way, to win the title in the Triple Threat. Brock was the original idea for like 6 months. He was the guy. And then I was like, no, Hero's way better. And so I was thinking, and then I talked to you about it, and I was like, wait, what if I send Hero over and he comes back? And that's where it started to develop. And then I thought, wait, you're currently not really doing anything with Owens. What if he comes and he can interact with Sami and AJ? And then he can go back by winning the Rumble. And then for a little bit there, you forgot Owens was supposed to win the Rumble. And I got really, like, annoyed because I
don't think I ever forgot that. I think... I either totally forgot about it, and you were right, or I think I always had it in the back of my head that it needed to happen, and I was teasing something else.
Vince winning the Rumble, I had a part of encouraging that.
Yeah, and then you were like, you sat me down and you were like, no, and then that was.
No, it's not that. When Vince was going to win the Rumble, I was like, oh yeah, well, I'll keep Owens. But like when you suggested someone else, then I was like, okay, no, if it's not going to be Vince, take fucking Owens back and finish this story. That was the big thing. And I thought and Owens winning the Rumble was interesting because obviously originally it was Owens Cesaro, originally it was Owens Seth.
Yeah, Seth was supposed to hold that long.
Because Owens was going to come back and like get revenge for Seth cashing in back at SummerSlam.
Yeah, it was going to be that long of a story, and you can like pelt me. You can get the tomatoes right now.
Get the bricks.
Get the bricks. That's my favorite line to add on to that. Just the get the bricks. But that was my original idea, and I'm pretty glad that it didn't happen because I would be a lot more upset with what I did with Raw, because there was a legitimate point where I hated what I was doing on Raw.
Yeah, it was like early summer, and I had to talk to you about it because there was a point where that was affecting the series, and not only that, I wanted you to have some fun doing it, and I think you have, and I'm really glad.
Oh, I definitely, I love my last little bit, and I love what I've been able to do, and I love the jokes I've created, and I've loved the fact that I don't know why, but like Apollo Crews now, I want him to do things in the real world because I've like created this like in canon in like.
Oh jeez, it's James Storm all over again.
No, I never actually genuinely liked James Storm.
Do you genuinely like Apollo Crews?
No, but with James Storm though, I feel no like personal like attachment to him. With like Apollo Crews,
Apollo, he's a likable
character.
My
headcanon character still exists for him until he decides in the real world, until he decides that he should have a character, because in my head, he wants to make the Apollo crew. He just doesn't have the guys right now. He's got to wait for somebody to show up.
And that's the big difference between him and your like Storm character, is that this Apollo Crews character is legitimately likable. Like, he's actually great in lots of ways.
The James Storm character was just... I don't talk about my TNA
character.
series as like anything because it was so bad. Like when I talk about telling a story versus just playing TEW, I was playing TEW in that, but literally to the max. As in, I just say what the angle said. I would have nothing. I'd add nothing to it. Why were they fighting? I don't know.
Were you one of those guys who went into the worker improvements and just read them out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was that guy, and I think you do have to go through that as. I'll cover my eyes. Oh, you can't see it anyways. I'm stupid.
For those of you who can't see, nobody can see. I just logged
Nobody
into
can
Steam.
see.
Tucker can see my screen right now, so he knows what's going on.
Oh crap! Where was I going? Oh no!
Oh jeez, TNA playing. You have to go through the worker improvements for some reason.
I think you do have to go through that phase at some point, and then you graduate and you come to the other side. Sure. It's part of my big thing that Puddy goes on about, where I feel like you have to take certain steps before you become a main eventer, and I finally shed my young boy presence. I become a main eventer now.
You're wearing colored trunks now.
Yeah, I all of a sudden have a character. They're letting me like have. 2 minutes on the mic per night instead of like the 30 seconds before.
Minutes on the mic? Like, you just graduated from young boy status, man. You ain't got no minutes on the mic.
That's true. I'm now just an average YouTuber. My stomach just growled at me. Jesus.
Yeah, well, if you just talk about Chris Hero and Kevin Owens, we're going to wrap this up.
We have to get other things. We have to go into the future.
Yes, that's the next thing. So I guess...
So much longer? Jeez, all right.
Let's
lock in now.
Yeah, we've talked about it enough.
Lock in.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk about the draft first of all. We figured this out. I had it in my head beforehand. Like, we roughly know who we're drafting. And I'm going to say it. Correct me if I'm completely off base. But roughly the idea would be that The Miz and Drew Galloway would be going to SmackDown. And that AJ Styles and Carl and Doc would be heading to Raw.
Which would be very cool for me, because then I could do the whole... That would also make Finn and the Bucksu kind of relevant again, because...
They would be feuding.
Friends? Yeah, are they friends? And I don't think I would. I think I would have them split off as, like... Well,
Carl and Doc come in with the power of friendship now. You need to remember that.
No, I would ditch that. Oh. I'd be like, oh my god... I'd be like, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are back from Japan. Like, what are they doing here? They were tag team champions, remember? And then I would probably have like Bullet Club Phenom versus Bullet Club like Gun.
What? I should also mention, because I just thought about it, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows individually are the most decorated competitors in the series. 3 championships.
The Machine Gunka universe. The Machine Gunka verse.
I don't know. I think. Technically, I guess if Cesaro has a title reign, technically, which I think he does, tag title reign, sorry, then he has 3 as well.
Does he? He never won Triple Crown though. Nobody in the series won Triple Crown.
Well, Owens won the IC belt, the world, and 2 world titles. Same world titles, but the two.
Never won the tags. Cesaro won the tags and the world. Sammy won the Intercontinental and the world.
Not the tags.
Not the tags. Yes, nobody.
Gargano came close to winning the tags, but never won them. And he never
Yeah.
won anything actually, except for the title at the end.
Sabre Jr. didn't even have the tags either, which kind of sucks.
No,
Hero.
Typical Revolution.
No, Hero.
No, Hero had the tag titles.
Very well could have.
No, Hero did win the Triple
he?
Crown. He won the IC
Triple
title
Crown!
from Sammy. He was He won the tag titles as part of KED, and he won the world title at the end.
We did it, folks. We did it. Somebody won the Triple Crown. It is the C Hero verse.
It's the C Hero verse. So I'll talk quickly because I'm not going to be too long. I have most of what I wanted to get done is done. The next year is going to be rebuilding. John Cena's going to go away for a while, and I'm not 100% sure, and this is why it's up to you, what his character is going to be doing from here on out. Because he could very well have a change of heart, or he could scheme something new. And I think that's a very interesting kind of look at it, but I'm not going to go too much into that.
He could become like a TV show where every single year it's like that John Cena's back at it again.
John Cena blasting off again!
Yeah, pretty much.
But the big main event angle going into Judgment Day and the summer is I was going to have Drew Galloway arrive on SmackDown and look around and look at the hatred, look at the vitriol, look at the fact they've gone through 4 general managers in 2 years, and look at how much conflict is going on and say, you know what, you're all like a bunch of absolute idiots, and you're all fighting amongst yourselves. You're all just having what's the word, scuttles or whatever it is. You're having little
oh crap, what's it called?
You're having little tiny inconsequential fights with each other, and it's
I'm trying to think of the word. Why
scuffles?
Can't I think of it? Scuttles. What do I want to say? Scuttles. Now, damn it, Puddy.
You're having very inconsequential
Scuffles.
fights.
Scuffles. It's scuffles.
Okay, scuffles between each other. It's nonsense. It's bullshit. You're not achieving anything, and I'm not going to come in here and say we should all stop having conflict. That's never worked, Sami Zayn. What I am going to come in here though, I'm going to conquer. I'm going to lead a crusade. I'm going to save SmackDown from SmackDown, and just like he did, like kind of a similar thing to what he did across independent wrestling, but mainly in Evolve, where he tried to independent wrestling was all about getting uptight and close to these big promotions, and he felt like that completely took away from what independent wrestling was supposed to be. And he'll look at SmackDown and think that's not what a big multinational brand is supposed to look like, and he will ally with Chris Hero, most likely. That was my plan, and those two, and plus maybe some friends, but I didn't think that far ahead, would then crusade against
probably I'm just going to assume probably Enda, just because he's like just
maybe Enda,
buddy.
Maybe Ethan Carter the third,
maybe EC3 is in our dev,
those type of people, and they would be crusading against, guess who? Johnny Gargano, who of course was the guy who
super cool
defended Evolve, and Sami's going to be there as kind of a wise owl type character at this point.
He's like, "Oh, I have seen the other side." Okay, that was extremely racist. I apologize.
And that's that. I'll leave most of that up to you guys. But then the other big feud that I was going to have was Sami was going to take the title off of Johnny at some point.
This was so cool. This thing that you have told me about, at least just in like whispers and hushed tones.
So before I came up with the Drew Galloway stuff, Sami was going to take the title off of Johnny like 2 weeks after Mania. It was going to be on SmackDown, won a title shot, wins it, and then Sami is just going to essentially be like, "Yo, I'm the ace now. It's what I do." And he's kind of going, even though he's kind of reached this point against Cena where he's realized his flaws, he hasn't quite conquered them, and he's going to become that. He's going to kind of become that character that Owens talked about, where even though he's dicking over his friends at this point, and he'll be feuding with Gargano and Sabre a lot, he still thinks he's the good guy. And he thinks that, you know what? The reason why I need this title is because when I'm running SmackDown, everything's better. And he really wants to just control everything. And I don't know whether we'd go full heel by him by SummerSlam, or he'd see the error of his ways. I hadn't quite gone through that yet. And obviously with the Galloway crusade, it would be really interesting if Sami did that a little later, and then because Sami is feuding with Gargano, Galloway just wins. Galloway just controls SmackDown.
You could also swing it that since Galloway comes in and tries to switch up SmackDown even more and change it even more from what it is.
Yeah.
That could legitimately I don't want to say drive Sami insane, but make him to a point where he feels like he needs the belt, or else somebody else will show up and try to take over, because it happened under Gargano. And when other people hold the belt, bad things happen and SmackDown starts to go down a dark path. I always need to have this. If I don't have this,
and then it could be another layer when
wrestling isn't fun.
It could be another layer when Sami went to go after the belt. That's when when Galloway won, and that drives him insane, because it's what am I supposed to do? And you could also have there's a big thing. It was on my head. Oh, that's right. And SmackDown is going to be a barren wasteland of ideas between Mania and SummerSlam. It's the GM is gone. Nobody really knows what SmackDown is anymore. And you have Galloway and you have Sami being yes, we know what we want SmackDown to be. But you could also have a few fringe groups. People like Catchpoint. They have a huge philosophy on what wrestling should be like. They're going to be coming and saying, look, we think SmackDown should be like this. Let's hire Lenny Leonard to be the GM so he can run it like a sports promotion. And stuff like that.
That could also lead to more Sami, if they are supposed to be fundamentally good people, Sami Sammy also becoming more and more of this darker character, he could also like go against them
Yeah.
because they want to change SmackDown. He needs to like uphold his vision, making him even more like the John Cena character.
Yeah, and I bet I'm also assuming Ron and Bojack try and like influence SmackDown in some ways as well.
Old people should run this.
And
like, I'm young.
So that would be the big Mania to SummerSlam thing. SmackDown is very in flux. Nobody's running it. It's like the Wild West, and lots of people have different ideas. Its fundamental core is Sami trying to keep what he thinks he's earned and trying to build a SmackDown that's real, and also being really paranoid about it being fake, maybe again, and also and then Galloway being the big antagonist of the year. Who is not going to be he's not going to be actually that competent. I planned for Galloway to lose a lot of big title shots to show the audience. In terms of wrestling, Galloway's actually pretty incompetent, but his ideas are strong.
It'd be pretty cool also if you could show that he is kind of incompetent and stuff like that. But the fact is that SmackDown is so broken and weak right now that he's still able to do a lot of damage anyways.
And Chris Hero is extremely good still.
Yes, yeah. and he's got Chris Hero at his side who can actually do things.
And then I'd like to leave it there because I think we should leave it quite open. But that would be my general idea up until like pretty much the entire year is rebuilding SmackDown and having that. And there's one last thing I'm just going to mention is that Kairi Hojo would debut the night after Mania and have a big monster style push. Bayley would eventually win the belt back from Becky Lynch before SummerSlam. And they could have a very interesting feud that I'm sure could go in many different directions. And then we would have Kairi beat Bayley at SummerSlam and hopefully make a star there. Add Kairi to our mix of like 5 or 6 women that are really big, and then move from there to like develop a few things with Bayley as the ace. Becky as the ace, Bayley as the fan favorite, and Kairi as a very strong face. And then you've got the heel kind of gallery that I've created with like Becky and Alexa and Asuka. Alexa when she gets back, lots of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, the Alexa injury kind of sucked because originally that was supposed to be a fatal 4-way.
It was
right?
meant to be. So yeah, I'll explain because you can probably realize what was meant to happen. But I'll just quickly explain that.
Can you explain this while I just quickly run to the?
Okay, I won't do it quickly.
Do a thing.
All right,
cool. Draw it out.
So originally, I was. You might have noticed this. Obviously, the contendership situation regarding the WWE title, women's title, was going to be very muddled, as it was. And then we had the 1 week where it was Alexa versus Asuka for the number 1 contendership. And the plan was, okay, Asuka's going to win that. Asuka's going to go on to face Bayley, right? The next week, Becky would do her open challenge. Alexa would come out, beat Becky. Becky's done really well over the last couple of months. Cena would be like, you know what, yeah, you did very well in beating Becky. I'll add you to the match, triple threat. The next week, Becky would be like, you know what, I've worked so hard, I'm not going to give up, and call out Asuka, the number 1 contender, for her open challenge. Win, and Cena would be like, alright, you deserve a shot too. Fatal 4-way. That was what I was going to do for that. But Alexa got in.
Alright, I've returned. Is that really good timing? Puddy, your mic's gone. Oh no. That's disastrous. I don't know what's happened with Puddy, but anyways, I guess I'll get into what Raw was going to become. So I'm watching Puddy maybe try to fix his mic. I'm not too sure. Oh, I hear something. Maybe that's him.
Might be me.
Yep, that's you.
I hope that hasn't been gone for too long.
I don't know. I just heard you say something, and I sat down, and all of a sudden you stopped. And
okay, well, that's good.
Okay.
Just yes, now would be a very perfect time to go into what might have been next for Raw.
It's going to be funny to hear this word. And I do believe it's the correct word. If not, Putty's going to very quickly correct me with some very confused remarks. Glacial Tomb?
That's wrong.
Damn it.
I'm kidding. Go on. What were you saying?
Glacial Tomb.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct.
Shane McMahon has to,
no, I think you're incorrect.
I had the word.
I think you're consolidate is the word you're looking for.
Yes, thank you.
Consolidate. But I think you're wrong then because Shane doesn't have the power right now. Apollo does.
Well, no, Shane has the power. Shane's the general manager.
Yeah, but Vince doesn't have the title anymore. That was the legitimacy behind that unit.
No. Basically, the next...
It's like the executive in the legislature. Shane's the executive, but he doesn't have the legislature. Yeah?
No, not at all. But, anyways...
power system.
Basically, the whole idea is that Shane McMahon is going to attempt to gain control of Raw, and he's going to do some very, I guess very authoritarian things. Like he's going to, I think of like a full-on like military police.
Daily spankings on the hour, by the hour.
Yes, that type of deal. As like that, close to that as you can get with wrestling. And Kevin Owens kind of just wrecking shit for him. Of course, Kevin has to fight Apollo at some point. That is something that's going to build to. And also with the added in threat of like AJ, the Bullet Club, not to mention the Wyatt family.
Is Vince dead?
Vince is not dead.
Ooh.
Vince in kayfabe is not dead. He will live forever, as he is the best of all time.
Is Vince done with his wrestling days, though?
That's up to the viewer.
Ooh.
All I will say is that Vince would probably not show up for at least like 3-4 months in our version, as Shane kind of would run his own shit, and then Vince would come back and kind of be like, what the fuck is happening? Basically, Raw is... The best way to explain Raw is with the thing you see in the thumbnail behind Vince McMahon, Kevin Owens, and Apollo Crews, and it's going to be what it's always been. And it's funny to try to hear me book things for the future because, like I said, I do everything on the fly. So basically, you can always count on the fact that Raw, in some degree, will always be a dumpster fire.
Wow. Is that all you wanted to say?
I guess, yeah. I don't have much.
That's
like
fine.
It was a lot. It was a lot of this. When I pitched this originally, it was so you could tell your side because I wanted to know more. And over here on my side, it's like, oh shit. I guess from there, Owens has to fight Apollo at some point. Don't really know what I do there. Shane probably is dicking around a whole lot, and Owens doesn't like him. And the Wyatt family, I did want to do something with them at some point in the regular series, so I probably would have done it anyways. But now AJ's back, so he may take things over.
Or is AJ going to retire, as he should, due to the stipulation of the match?
We all know when you retire. You don't really retire. You stop wrestling for a few years, run out of money, and decide to start wrestling for a second-rate indie company who thinks they can compete on Monday nights when they really can't.
So the last thing I wanted to do today was I wanted to throw out a list of names, because we booked a lot of people in this series. A lot of people. A huge amount of people. Tucker isn't reacting to this, but if you really think about it, we booked so many people in the series. We booked over 120 people, guaranteed.
Easily.
Throughout the series, which is a huge amount of personnel and characters to get a hold of. But even through all that, there are a few people that we never booked. Not once. And some of them are actually very good. And I thought it might be interesting if we look at the names very quickly, and you can maybe give you and me, if you don't have anything to say, an idea of why they never got used.
Sure.
First one's Marty Scurll.
Just didn't have a place for him, to be honest. He just didn't fit in with anything, because there was a point where he was coming to the roster.
Yeah.
And that was in the last little bit where it was a lot of those guys who didn't get too used, because that was originally the rebirth of the Cruiserweight division, something else I didn't really touch on. When Rich Swann came in with No Way Jose and stuff like that, and I was trying to rebuild my Cruiserweight division because I looked around, I was like, I can kind of do this now. In the end, scrapped it, changed up some of my picks, but Marty was originally coming to Raw at one point, but at the end of the day, it just didn't really work out, and I couldn't fit him in anyways. And I think I know Puddy's reason why Marty never came to SmackDown.
I feel like, and I like Marty Scurll in Evolve, and a lot of the wrestling side of my promotion eventually became very similar to Evolve. So I think he would fit in quite well on SmackDown. But very similar to you, just didn't really have a space for him. And I'm not very passionate about Marty Scurll. I don't hate the guy. I think he's a very good wrestler, above average. I think he's going to be very successful in the WWE. I think he has has all of the tools to make a lot of money, because he has very similar tools to that of Finn Balor before he came to the WWE. If they give Marty Scurll a good gimmick and a good entrance, I genuinely think he will make them a lot of money, but he's just not my style. So I wasn't passionate about it, didn't bring him up.
Fair enough.
Will Ospreay. Young Will.
What's that?
I said young Will.
Yeah, this is somebody else where realistically, A, they didn't fit in. B, I'm not passionate about him, I guess. Same way that you aren't with Marty, really. I've seen a few Will Ospreay matches, and I'm not overly enthused with everything that I see. I think he's quite good, undoubtedly, but I don't know, just not kind of my thing, I guess. Jesus, I just repeated the exact same thing you did. Way to be, Tucker.
I got the opportunity to pick up a fast worker around SummerSlam that I was going to be putting in a... It was going to get lost in the shuffle in the mid-card. I knew he was going to do that, it was fine. I decided to pick up TJP because he could also...
I thought it was going to be Ray.
No. Because I could also add him to the catch point stable. So that was literally...
Yeah, you did have Will at one point. I remember that. You were going to get him at some point.
It was a choice between Will and TJP, and I thought TJP fit better. Kushida!
I don't think I could book Kushida well enough to where I did him any
justice.
justice.
He's Japanese!
Yeah, and I don't really know too much about the Japanese characters aside from a lot of the bigger guys. And even then, I failed at... I can just say right now, I would not have done very well with Okada for very long. It would not have worked. That's all I can say.
For me, I think it was the mod. I'm going to be honest here. I knew he would do terribly, and I was not in the mood to build him up. I was in the mood to build some people up. I thought Riddle would do a lot worse than he did. Very surprised that he did as well as he did. But I was like, that's Matthew fucking Riddle. I'll put the effort in. I like Kushida a lot, but was not in the mood.
Yeah, I like Kushida as well.
In the early summer to do that. Bobby Fish and or Kyle O'Reilly, because I'm pretty sure we used one of the two.
I did, yes. Kyle O'Reilly became part of Raw at the end, and then he got injured.
Okay. Did we use Bobby Fish at all? Was he part of Puddy's shit list?
No, that was Davey Richards. Ooh,
yeah, I knew Davey Richards. Who was the other guy in that?
Aries.
Oh, yeah, I don't hate Aries that much.
Aries and his package.
I mean, I don't love Bobby Fish a lot. I think he's just not a guy that I enjoy watching a lot of the time.
I find him boring.
Okay.
I find him boring. I think he's, out of the two of them, he is by far the worst half. And I think he's pretty all right in ring, but I just don't think he's that interesting of a character.
Adam Cole. Really? I'm surprised. He seems like you're saying
I think he might be, but to be honest, I just don't. How about this? I don't like the company he works for in the real world, and I think they're very bad. So I think that maybe rubs off on him in my eyes, and also there just wasn't a place for him. Because he was another guy who was supposed to be coming to Raw, and then I looked at it and I was like, nah, I don't want him.
Okay. For me, he never would have fit on the roster. He's very much charisma over everything, with a lack. And I'm not saying he's a bad wrestler. I'm just saying that.
I mean,
I'm just saying that there's not enough there. He would be lost in a sea of very strong competitors. Like people like my mid card had Hiroshi fucking Tanahashi in it for the longest time.
Still Tana never left the mid card ever.
And so if you've got someone like that in your mid card, the guy's going to get lost in the ring. They're going to be like the best. Some of the better wrestlers on the independent scene in my mid card would look like green jobbers. So, and he was never going to get the opportunity to be a real character. So he would never would have fit on the brand. Cherry Bomb.
Damn you, Puddy. I don't have a women's division.
You don't, but she was going to be the manager of the Cuck Brothers.
The Cuck Brothers were never an actual thing that were going to go anywhere.
Okay. My women's division was poorly managed the entire time. It was a failure of mine. I needed to build...
Fucking failure, Puddy.
I needed to build a core, and the people that I added to my women's division needed to be very strong. And before I built the core, and the core is just finished, so I never got to build that core of workers that could really carry the division until like now. So
this is not the core of Wade Barrett, Heath Slater, Justin Gabriel, Ezekiel Jackson, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure.
It is
Jeez.
just a bunch of really good and popular wrestlers who could carry the division. So anyone that I added, people like Oscar.
Puddy, I gotta interrupt you again. That sounds like Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, Ezekiel Jackson.
Anybody that I added would get lost in the shuffle, and so I'm glad I didn't call Cherry Bomb up. I'm glad I didn't call a lot of the women I was going to call up around SummerSlam, because they would have got lost in the shuffle. So yeah, I just could. The women's division was not strong enough to introduce characters that weren't going to be world-class performers. So yeah. So I have anyone? I don't have anyone else on the list, but I'm trying to think, because I'm sure there are more people that we've had access to. Damien Sandow.
Damien Sandow is not very good,
but he was really over, and he's pretty good at adapting.
What?
Adapting, making a lot of gimmicks work. Someone like a Chris Jericho, that's something he gets praised for a lot, is that he makes a lot of shit work. I really think he could have fit somewhere on your rank.
Oh, probably could have, but I don't really like him.
Okay, that's fair. That's very fair.
And that became something that near the end I started to realize that I needed to do. As much as some people I could overlook, other people I couldn't. People who I think are total garbage I could not overlook. P.S. Damien Sandow, Aaron Steves, if you're ever watching this, you're a lovely person, and I love you.
No, I hear he's actually really bad.
Oh,
he like beats his girlfriend or something.
Oh, you're fucking scum. Kill yourself.
I don't.
This is going on my channel, correct?
Allegedly.
This is my channel, correct? Not your channel?
Yeah, it's going to be your channell.
Oh, thank God. Okay,
the views of Tucker Davidson do not necessarily reflect Silly Tucking Corporations or much of the hurt giving. I want to come up with one more name, and then I'll pass it over to you, so get ready. I want names.
Oh, shit, buddy. I can't think of names. Come on, man. This is not fair. What the fuck has this become?
I'm trying to think of one last name of like someone who's reasonably credible who would have fit in somewhere that people are probably expecting to see.
Ethan Carter III.
Ethan Carter III. Oh, that'll be one of yours. So we'll get on to him in a second. I want to come up with one of my own first.
Brodus Clay.
We'll talk about him when we get to your names, I suppose.
But he's like, oh no.
Wait, don't keep shouting him up so I can get one more.
Please don't say this one that I'm thinking of.
I probably won't, because I'm not thinking of like many. I'm just trying to think of really like high people, high energy. No, it's Tana. Just like important people. What about like going into the deep, like really good fringe Japanese guys would be people that you just wouldn't think to use, and people I didn't think fit on my brand. But trying to think. Oh, what about Grado? Yeah, that's a good one. Grado. Why didn't you ever use Grado? That's my last one. Actually, I'll add two. Grado and Colt Cabana for similar reasons. Why didn't we ever use either of those two?
I guess he would have fit well enough in like the pastor, Dalton Castle kind of sector. Yeah. But I didn't really like when I went to there, to be honest. I thought it was funny enough at this point, and then at the time, and then the more and more I started to look at it, the more and more I was like, I don't totally like that, and I like the more like Titan Towers raid type stuff compared to when we went to the pastor's church, and there was fucking like Jey Uso, the seaweed monster, hanging out in the pool, something that
pretty sure it was Jimmy.
I had Jimmy the entire time. Yeah, you're right. God damn it. Why do I not know the two of them still?
No, we always confuse it.
That's true. But yeah, that's pretty much why with Grado. I think I just got super quiet, but whatever.
So the reason why... So I honestly, this is one thing where I'm looking at those two and I'm like, in a lot of ways they would have really fit the promotion, especially maybe during the Sami has won era, where they could have beat... Sami's like, hey guys, you want to come have some fun on the mid-card? That would have been cool, and also would have helped set the tone. And it also would have been cool if we had Grado or Colt Cabana come in and do like a 3-week program where they're just having fun, just completely unrelated to the main plot. They're doing comedy matches, and for 3 weeks, even though it's unrelated to the main plot, the tone of the show would have been happier. And then when that 3 weeks is over, we could have had a bad guy murder them, and we could have changed the tone in a very nice way that way as well.
Could have literally killed them.
Not literally killed them, but we could have had Chris Hero send one of them through an announcer's table and then they would never come back. Something like that. So that was a feeling on my end. I think both guys are really good at what they do. I think they do a very good job. I think they are objectively good wrestlers, even though I don't love all of the stuff they do. And I think they would have fit in niche areas of my roster. Generally speaking, they wouldn't be main event players, even though I like both of them, think they can draw real money. They wouldn't be main event players on my roster anywhere, so that's why I never brought them in officially. But using them as fringe players to do some mid-card tone setting. Having one of them as a tone setter on my roster would have been pretty useful when I started getting smarter about my tones. So, that was a failing on my part.
My side, correct?
Your list, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Okay, so first of all, Ethan Carter III.
It was difficult to fit him in, and I didn't want to. I wanted to do him justice. I think he's pretty good. I think he's very.
Puddy, he's one of very few guys in TNA that Puddy actually really thinks is quite decent.
Yeah, very much so. And I wanted to do him the right job. I knew he needed a rebrand if he was going to come out.
He couldn't be Ethan Carter III for.
Fuck Derek Bateman.
Fuck you, Dixie Carter.
Yeah, there was obviously that's a TNA specific gimmick. Keeping
your name leached onto his legacy. Go fuck yourself.
So
sorry.
So obviously the rebrand was difficult and nothing was coming instantly to mind. I needed time. I needed him to be able to have the time. It's one of those things where go on.
He will be Eric Bateman.
It would have been one of those things where I might have ended up in a Tucker situation where it's I guess he can feud over the contendership for the IC title. And it's no, if he's coming in, he's going to get a 3-month push to a title shot. And I couldn't do that, and I couldn't find the time for it. But I do think there's a very good opportunity for him to join Galloway, if you guys are booking the series.
Yeah, pretty much the same here on my part. EC3 was another guy who was supposed to come to Raw at one point.
I think I talked you out of it, so I would have him in the back pocket if I ever found the idea for it.
Yeah, I think you basically were nah, he's shit, don't use him. And I'm oh, okay. Which is something pretty funny because I know for a fact that you think he's pretty good. Yeah. I don't know how I bought that at the time. But I did. And it's also probably because there were a lot of people that I didn't use in the series because, and this is something I've been even told to you. I didn't use a lot of people in the series because at the point when we were kind of expanding and picking up people and stuff through the draft, I didn't want to take a lot of really good wrestlers because I knew you could do them better justice than I could have. Because I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't write anything. I had no ideas, no concepts, no storylines. And I knew you had this big overarching plan. So if you were oh yeah, I think I want to go for this type of thing, I wasn't going to touch anything like that because.
And I'm very glad you did because there were many times throughout the series where I struggled to find people that I could theoretically trust to always go out there, and I'm I don't really care about the numbers, but not in game, but in my head, oh yes, if I have a Chris Hero on the roster, I would be very comfortable main eventing every show with him. It was difficult to find people I could trust, and especially at the start when you had Sammy and AJ, I was at a loss for a little while until I got those guys to find those kind of people. So I'm glad that the world remained quite open for me in that respect.
Yeah, so next up on my list is oh shit, I just dropped a thing. Next up on my list is Jay Lethal.
Ooh, good one. Very good one. I think he is an interesting package. Because he is an above average promo, he is an above average wrestler, and he has an above average manager. But for some reason, when they all come together, occasionally it sparks some great stuff, but it's very hit or miss. It's one of those things where it's oh yeah, this one little promo this week was fire, and then the match is terrible. Or this promo was really terrible, but that match apparently was pretty good. Oh, you decided to go 60 minutes with Roderick Strong and it didn't quite work. Or, lots of stuff like that. And I think of Jay Lethal as one of those guys where it's if I had a really good idea for him, I would probably do it, but I'm not going to bring him in as a guy because I don't trust him as a guy. He's very I couldn't stick Jay Lethal in my head in a main event match and be like, that's going to be awesome. It's just like, you know what? If he's got the marketing team behind him, he's pretty good. But as a guy just out there on his own, if he had to play the Tana role in this series, it would be nowhere near as effective because just inherently he's worse. And that's why he never got picked up from me.
For me, it was trying to find space for him, I guess. I had a lot of guys on my roster who didn't really do much, and they could have done a lot more realistically. People like Cedric Alexander, who's been on my roster this entire time almost, and has never done anything. I drafted him along with like Rich Swann and those guys, and he didn't really do anything at all. So I didn't want him kind of to fall into that if you could do better with him. Up next on my list, Jimmy Havoc.
Oh, Jimmy Havoc is a very difficult character to book.
Yeah, I couldn't have done him well. I'll tell you that.
Not just that, but like you have to find the right situation. And hell, like a couple of eras of SmackDown during this series, Havoc might have fit in really well, but it was not a challenge I was willing to take on. It's one of those things where you have to kind of really, really cater the entire current promotion around him. And
yeah, if he's not going to be a big deal, you can't just have him there.
No, you just can't. And also, you have to change.
We kind of failed. Both of us kind of failed that with Pentagon, I think, where he could have been a lot more than.
I am actually kind of happy with the work I did with him. Actually,
when you were doing work with him.
No, because I'm actually
that fire roast right there.
when like I said with Brock, I'm okay with characters not being seen for 6 months if they have nothing to do. I'm very okay with that, and I think Pentagon's run on SmackDown, while not perfect, I wouldn't do it any other way.
I'm trying to think now about other names. I've hit America, I've hit ROH, I've hit Britain, Japan. How about Tomohiro Ishii?
Did we get him?
We do have him, yes.
Okay, if that's the case, because there are a few guys where we just, like Katsuhiro Shibata, we just didn't get. Ibushi, we just didn't get. But with...
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I should have...
Yeah, I'm sure I've said this a million times, but Ibushi versus Shinsuke for the IC title was a plan for last year's Mania. Ishii. He was someone who I didn't consider to be that great for a little while. I thought he was good.
No.
What? I thought he was good for a little while, and then he really, really proved himself to me in 2016 G1. He was the star of that tournament, and I realized that he is genuinely a great wrestler. And I think he probably would have fit very well somewhere in the SmackDown mid-card, debuting during a tournament, getting lost in the shuffle. But I don't know. Maybe it would have been a difficult pickup. It's another one of those Kushida things where it's like he would have been terrible, and he's not, in my mind, worth the effort to build at that point.
And I'll just flat out say Puddy would do him better. With another one that I want to do,
actually can I linger on that point? I think you would have done great with Ishii to some extent. To some extent, if you had just booked him like a monster. I know he's short, but I think you could have really...
Braun!
Yeah, right? That's the first thing that came to my mind, is that there were a part where you kind of...
That was another thing. Really well. I was like cock-blocked so hard by my other plans that like Braun kind of just couldn't do anything for the longest time.
Didn't Braun leave?
He did leave.
That was the big problem.
That was another big problem. Yes, he got up and left because...
Like Shinsuke.
Yeah. So somebody else, though. Katsuyori Shibata.
Well, I just mentioned that. We didn't get him.
Yeah, we did.
No, we didn't.
He's in our dev.
Got him recently, then.
I swear he's in our dev. If not, I'm crazy. He's probably not in our dev.
I know we couldn't get him for a very long time.
He's not in our dev. I'll just tell you right now. I don't think he's in our dev. So yeah, my bad on that. I'll throw out one more.
Just to put it out there, if we got Shibata, it would be very likely that he would have played a part on SmackDown.
Yeah. Just like Puddy could do him better than I could have. I will just continue.
And I would have very if we could get him, I would have very much lobbied to get him myself.
We don't have him?
Not the better looks, no.
Okay.
But if we could have got him, what I'm saying is that, just to like say why you didn't get him, if we could have gotten him, I would have asked you, like, can I have him? Because Shibata's
I
one
would
of my
give him
favorite
to you
wrestlers.
immediately. As much as I think I love Shibata, and I think he's probably my favorite wrestler.
Again, it's one of those things where if you
world
talked to me
currently.
about it for long enough, I might have concluded that you might have been better off with him than I would.
But the thing is that I don't know how I would write him. That's the thing, though. Like, I feel like you are
you get it, though.
At the core, you are a better writer than me. So I find that any time that I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to do here, I just kind of said to myself, leave it to Puddy. He could do it better. And we'll go with one last person. Let's go with a women's wrestler.
Oh, no, you strike me in the heart.
Ah, shit. I can't even think of one. Oh, come on. There has to be one, Tucker.
Oh,
Come
actually, there's a male wrestler, 2 male wrestlers that I'd like to mention while you're thinking of a women's wrestler.
Yep.
Jason Jordan and Chad Gable.
I think we can both say for this. Jordan, like, broke his spine, and I think he's not even healed yet.
He was supposed to be on SmackDown. There are very few call-ups on SmackDown that never went through. With Raw, you hear Tucker talking about it a lot, like, oh, this was going to happen at one point. For the most part, SmackDown
Everything
was
changed for me.
pretty stable. Like, we changed a few things, but most part, SmackDown was pretty stable. But one of the big ones was for Mania, the last year's Mania, the night after American Alpha was supposed to come up. And then Jordan got injured, and then for SummerSlam, Jordan wasn't healed, and it just sad. A series of unfortunate events meant that I never got Alpha. Probably a good thing. I don't dislike my tag division as much as you seem to, but I'll admit that it's not the strongest one I've ever run.
Yeah. Crowd. I still can't think of a women's wrestler. I can't think of any of them for some reason. British one. No, we booked.
Route except for maybe Nixon. I'll just say this.
Well, who we booked technically in the tournament? You technically.
If you count tournament wrestlers, I pretty much booked everyone.
Well, no, you didn't. Oh,
so many people
wise?
doing the Sizzler.
Yeah, you're right. The only one I can think of right now, though, is.
You will struggle to find one that wasn't in the Sizzler. That's good.
That's good. Damn it, that's so limiting.
Well, everyone on this list is pretty much good.
I would say. Oh man, can I get political? Can I roast a women's wrestler and will people get angry at me?
Well, it'll be the last thing we say on this podcast, so go for it.
I don't know
Beware,
how.
If you say something too harsh, or not harsh, but say something too raunchy, I'm going to have to go to the papers.
Oh no, he's gonna go to the papers if he has to, folks.
Go on, Tucker. End this off. What are you gonna say?
But I would say that. Oh man, why didn't one of us get Leva Bates? But she's really shit and awkward as fuck. Thank you so much for watching the series, everyone. From the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my heart.
Except for you, Seamus, you ginger fuck. Deal with it.